the whole football stadium is packed, sold out. Woo! It's coming your way.
My old buddy Cedric. I've known you since day one.
Day one.
It's I usually don't do interviews with guys that I'm this close to because I don't know. Maybe I diminish like how important I think they are, how people perceive them because I know them too well. Oh. You know what it is? Like I look at you as like, oh, that's just Cedric. You know?
Yeah, I'm just like
and then you kind of dismiss like what you've accomplished in 7 years and what I think you're going to accomplish in the next 7. So. It's nice to sit down and talk to you, but I want to disclose to everybody that like Cedric is a Highspots boy. Cedric started here at Highspots. He's a North Carolina kid. His first day of training was here. He is a trainer for our wrestling school today. Well, every week he trains on Thursdays and has a group of kids that he kind of mentors. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about all that today because I've seen you since day one. So,
yeah, since my mom walked me in here and I was jumping up and down.
And how old were you then? Remind me.
I was 19.
19-year-old kid. And, you're going to have to remind me of some things because my memory's shot at my age. But you were coming back from college, is that right?
Yes, I just finished my second year of college at Spartanburg Methodist.
Okay. I remembered you were like one of these kids like everybody else, like, oh, all I want to do is be a wrestler. I just want to be a wrestler.
Yep. And,
of course, not being of age, I guess I probably made your mom come in and watch, not being 21, right? Mm-hmm. Is that how Mom got involved?
Yes, that's exactly how she got involved. I actually bugged her about joining Highspots 2 years prior to that, because I had seen you guys were running commercials and running with, I think it was NWA Charlotte. Mm-hmm. I can't remember who the promoter was for that, but I've been to a couple of those shows, and I just kept begging her, let me join. But I made her, she made me promise to at least do 2 years of college before going into wrestling, and I did my 2 years. I was like, all right, jail sentence is up. Let's wrestle. I'm ready to do this.
Did you play sports when you were at college?
Just wrestling.
Just wrestling.
I tried to dabble in like some football and cross country, and it just never was my thing.
Now your brother played football
for
East Carolina, right? Is that who it was?
Yes.
And my memory's totally shot, so maybe I'm thinking about someone else here. Was your brother like either drafted or supposed to be drafted and then had a bad injury?
Yes, he was going to be drafted into I think it was the Tennessee Titans.
Okay.
But his ACL blew out and.
In training or while he was in school?
I think it was in training. I can't remember the exact how it went, but he blew his knee out in training. I want to say, and they held on to him for like another year or two, and it just really never got better. Mm-hmm. So they just said, okay, go on about your business.
But he got to do a camp. I mean.
He was this close to being there. He was there. Yeah. He was at the camp training, and they liked him, and just kind of fell off.
And he's an older brother of yours. So, talk about how many years age difference? Like 4 or 5, right?
Wow, I'm a temper brother. It's about 3 years.
3 years. So I'm just thinking about Cedric, and I mean obviously everybody knows you as a really remarkable athlete in the wrestling ring, but your brother probably was a better athlete, right?
Oh,
growing up,
way better. He way bigger, way stronger than me. He did everything. He did some track. He did some football. He did basketball and everything. I was just that little kid who just loved wrestling so much, and that's all I ever did. That's all I was ever interested in. I was the one person in my family who didn't really like football a lot.
Oh, you didn't like football?
I didn't even like it that much.
And probably as a family, you kind of went to your brother's football games because that's down here. Football's king in the South. So.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Friday nights at high school, it's like a religious experience. You just go. And
oh yeah, it was almost like a religion because my brother was with the East Independence High School. They had the longest undefeated streak in Charlotte, North Carolina. I think it was like 5, 6, 7 years undefeated, like state champs every time. It was mandatory to know every stat in this game.
And you did wrestling in high school, but no other sports.
No other sports.
So you know, I did the same thing way back then. I did a couple of sports, but I remembered I was a fan of pro wrestling, and I got into amateur wrestling because I was a fan of pro wrestling. And of course, you quickly realize, like,
Yes.
not only are they not related, but that a lot of people there really look down at pro wrestling.
Yes. When I first got into it, I was expecting it to be a ring and stuff like that, and I would see these mats on the ground. Like, what is this? This isn't wrestling, because I had never been introduced to it at the time. So when my coach, at first I was gonna say no, I don't want to do it. It's not what I expected. But my coach, Frank Smithwick, who I really admire to this day, is somebody who really helped me find myself as an athlete. Because as a kid, I grew up with asthma, so I was told I would never be able to participate in sports. So when I tried out for wrestling, he said, "Look, just give me 3 weeks. We'll work on some stuff and whatever. And if you like it, stay. If you don't like it, then okay." And like 2 weeks in, I fell in love with it. It was amazing.
And tell me a little bit more about this asthma, because like I've never seen you as the guy that sucks on his inhaler all the time.
Oh, it was something that I was as a kid I really struggled with. So like playing, going out playing tag with my friends and stuff like that wasn't really encouraged, because I would easily start sucking wind hard from having asthma attacks, and my inhaler was always on me. And it wasn't actually until wrestling that I started to get over it. So my first year, freshman year in wrestling, I used my inhaler all the time. And then once I started, I guess, getting the cardiovascular thing in check. And
so do you think it was something you grew out of, or do you think it was a conditioning thing that you...
I want to say a little bit of both, because I was using it less when I got to high school, but once my freshman year was up and I was going into my sophomore year, I didn't use it at all. It was just sitting in my pocket for
So
days
you have an inhaler to this day, like as a backup plan?
Well, to this day, no.
So you never use an inhaler?
Never use it. Never.
No, I mean, people that use it, I mean, it could get scary. I mean,
oh, it's terrifying.
So you go ahead and you make mom happy. You go to 2 years of college, and then finally you come here at 19. So take us back, because I certainly don't remember that far back. Take us back to what you remember as a 19-year-old kid coming here.
So when I first walked in here, I was expecting a gigantic building, and it's full of rings and weights and all that kind of stuff. And I walk in, it's, you have a nice setup, but it wasn't like the huge wrestling gym I was expecting. So I remember when I first walked in, I saw Caleb Conley, who was working on shipping at the time.
Okay.
And when I first met Caleb, I always felt he had like a thing out for me, because he always gave me weird looks, like, who's this guy? Who this guy is, whatever. So I remember coming in, my mom behind me. I'm just waiting to see a ring, waiting to talk to someone, and I think it was Charlie Dreamer who directed me to your office. And then we talked a little bit, and you showed me around the ring, and I'm just saying, can I start today? I want to start now. I want to start now. And you're like, well, you expressed all the physical stuff to my mom about, you gotta be in shape, and the dedication and stuff like that. I was just ready to go then. And I remember I didn't start that day. I watched that day, and then I came back.
Who was training that day? Do you remember?
Who was in the ring that day?
Who was training that day?
George. It was
George
Tuesday.
was training.
It was a Tuesday.
Right.
It was a Tuesday I came in. No, take that back. It was a Thursday. It was a Thursday I came in, and at the time we didn't have anyone training. Jake was doing like some training for people who wanted to show up or whatever, and no one ever came. So I came back the following Tuesday, and then that was one of George's days. I remember Jason Jones, Caleb Conley, Charlie Dreamer, Jake Manning, there's a couple other miscellaneous guys. I think Baron Bulu was in there. We were just training around, and it was a shock to the system, because I'd never taken a bump before. So, and me thinking, oh, it's gonna be easy, it's gonna be awesome. I quickly went home and realized that it's a lot harder than I expected it to be.
But mom watched, right?
Oh, mom watched, and she cringed. She didn't like me coming home for the next 2 weeks, like sore, and my head hurt, my neck hurt.
Because I remember your mom was supportive from day one. I remember seeing her at a lot of the shows that you were on in the area.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, and you actually worked for your mom a little bit there when
Yes.
you were. I remember something about that.
As a desk worker in her CNA office.
Right.
Yep.
So you're training here. What's your first memories of Mr. George South?
Oh man, I try to remember what he first called me.
Yeah, what was your first nickname?
Okay, so George South, for those who don't know, gives everyone nicknames. My first nickname was Butch Reed Jr.
Oh, I forgot about that.
It was Butch Reed Jr. Then it went to Ron Simmons Jr. Then he called me Brick House for a while, and then it went from Brick House to Black Superman.
You know, somebody who didn't know George, you could maybe think he was a little bit racist with the nicknames, right?
Yeah, a little bit, but
because we've had that. We've had some
Yes.
some African American students that come in here and George gives them his nickname, and they're like, "You can't
Booker
do
T.
that."
Why's it gotta be Booker T?
Yeah.
Oh, he's black. I mean, George just sees things for what they are and just, hey, you remind me of this guy. That's all he ever goes off of. And I never took offense to anything. Like, I remember the one. Oh, George is gonna kill me for telling this story. Okay, so one time we did a show for George in Lancaster, South Carolina, and it was one of those weird weekends where he leaves his ring because we got to come back the next day for another show. So we're all driving back to Charlotte, and this is when MySpace was huge. So we're all talking about MySpace for some reason, and me being the guy who's 3 months in or whatever is like, George never added me on MySpace, and I felt so salty about it or whatever. And George, not missing the beat, George South don't add black people on MySpace. And it was, I never took offense to it. This is just George being George.
Right.
George just, it's funny. I thought it was funny. He didn't mean anything by it. It was a joke that he made, and I thought it was good.
Political correctness is not cut off with George.
It is not. It is not. And I love that about George. He says what he feels, and I appreciate that about him. And I remember from that point on, he never gave me a nickname. He just called me Cedric from that point on, and it was Cedric or Black Superman.
And and people don't realize how rare it is that George actually remembers your real name. So he has to think very highly of you if he actually remembers your actual name. So, because in a group of maybe 40 or 50 people, maybe it's 2 or 3. I think right now it's you and Tessa are probably the only 2 that get called by their real names, right?
He still calls her Tully.
Oh, he does call her.
He still calls her.
Well, he'll call her Tessa to me, so he actually knows her name.
Oh, yeah, he just refused to call it to her.
Right.
That's the only thing.
So, I remember we get a lot of guys in here at the school, and it's so weird because you can never really tell. Sometimes they're in great shape and they just flake out, and sometimes they're in terrible shape, but you can see the passion they have. But I remember that you were one of the students that we looked at early and said, "Man, this guy could make something." I mean, he's in great shape. He's young. He's dedicated, and and even to this day, and this is probably a comment that I would have saved for the end. What I think makes you stand out more than some other people is, you've been doing this for 7 years, and usually when people get far enough along into wrestling, they kind of coast back, and practice becomes the shows. It's like the only time you'll see the ring is maybe on the show day or right before the show if you get a few minutes in the ring. But your credit, I mean for physical stuff aside, you're still a student. You still come in here and you put in the time. Even though you train and lead a class on Thursdays, you're in here for George's classes. You never seem to miss one of those. So I think a lesson that a lot of people that are watching this can realize that you're always learning.
Yes.
And if you think you've made it to some level, and you're ready to coast, well, there's someone like Cedric that's going to work even harder.
And George, that's something George instilled to me from the very beginning, is that you're always learning. Like George always says, I'm 30 years into wrestling. I'm still learning stuff every day. And it's 100% true. I've never come to George's class or Caleb's class or my own class and not walk away with something that I didn't know prior to coming in. You're always picking up little things that a lot of people seem to miss and don't take, give enough credit to knowing, I guess.
Right. And it might have been before you actually got here, but I used to lead some of these classes and these training classes back in the day.
I heard stories about that.
I
never
so at least I know it was at least more than 7 years ago, because I couldn't remember if I did lead any classes when you first started here. But what I will say is, I think a light bulb turns on when you're on the other side and you're leading students and you're calling the spots and you're leading the practice. That it's hard to explain unless you've done it. But I think it makes you a better wrestler, a better performer.
And that was my main reason for wanting to lead on Thursdays. So even though I'm not in there physically doing the moves, I see things in a different angle, like you said, and it's a different way of learning. And just because you're not doing the tackles, drop down, leave rugs, hip tosses, whatever, you still learn the psychology part that a lot of people just don't care to learn sometimes.
And I think you learn more being an at a certain level. I think you learn more teaching sometimes than you do just going through the motions as a
Yes.
student.
I 100% agree with that. 100%.
Okay, so we start off, you're doing all these great church shows, these shows where you're putting up rings, taking down rings, wrestling in front of mom and dad and a few friends and stuff, and you're clawing your way up. I remember there was a point where I felt comfortable and said, you know what, I'll start taking Cedric on the road with me, and I use what little influence I have to get you on some of these bigger shows. Mm-hmm. So some of the earlier shows I remember I got you on were like the Northeast Wrestling shows. Was that the first, would you say your first big show that you did?
I want to say
outside
it was.
this area.
It was. It definitely was. That was, man. Yeah, that wasn't the first big show. I remember I had my crappy little blue tights on. That was the first set of custom tights I ever got made. I remember it was the first time I actually wrestled someone that wasn't in our circle. Mm-hmm. So, and that match just came out pretty good. I was shocked that I was actually able to go with someone else that wasn't in our circle, because I never done it before.
I don't remember if this was the particular match that you're thinking of, but I remember your breakout match, and this may not be the way you remember it, was like Bull Dread.
That was the one.
That was the one?
That was the one. That was the first NEW show I had actually performed. I've been to a couple before, just to sell merch and et cetera, but that was the first one.
That was the first show you were on? Because I remember Bull is, and Bull's still active today, and he's a super nice guy, and I'm not trying to, this is not a slight on Bull, but like Bull, physically, he was larger than, he didn't move around real well, and like some of his matches weren't the greatest because he's like the big man, so I mean,
right.
Kind of limited. And then paired with you, I mean, you guys, I remember, stole the show. That was a fantastic match, and I remembered from that point the promoter kind of like, I want Cedric on every show.
Yes, yeah, I was doing them.
You were a great compliment to a bigger guy that may not have stood out on his own, but you made him stand out. You stood out in the process. Oh
yeah, and it was easy. I remember talking to the guys in the locker room after the show. They're like, "Man, how did you pull that out of Bull? 'Cause that was the best match he's had in years." I was like, "I just wrestled him. I just went out there, and my intent was to make him look good, and I think I accomplished it."
I think a lot of people don't realize how even and maybe once when everybody's really good, it doesn't matter as much. But maybe starting out, having two guys that complement each other really is important to the success of a match. You got to have. You have to have two guys that complement each other, and then at that stage in your career, and probably in his as well, I mean, you're the athletic, move like lightning fast, and he's the big guy, and so, it just really meshed well. And was that the only time that you worked at Northeast Wrestling?
No, me and him had at least 2 or 3 other matches after that, and all progressively just got better. Amazing.
So, what are some of your other memories of just your matches at Northeast Wrestling? Because I know you've worked your way up, you've had some good matches there, and
I remember me and Jake Manning had a match. It was the same show as Daniel Bryan and Shelton Benjamin. They were the main event for that show. I believe we were the opening match. And that was, I remember that match, man, some fan came up to me and told me that I was the most amazing wrestler he had ever seen. And I'd never heard of it.
So that's the point we lost you. Oh, okay. I was wondering how.
That was when my head blew up to proportions.
That's when you started sleeping in the car. On the phone car ride.
That's when I stopped driving and stopped helping out. But that was the point where I realized, man, I'm actually doing something here. Because before, I was always just the young boy, helping with tables and da-da-da-da-da, which, is paying your dues. Like, a lot of people don't, take that for granted as well. But I remember that match really made me feel like a star. Not just because I wrestled Jake, who, I think is one of the most underrated guys in wrestling today, but because fans actually came back to me and was like, man, that was amazing. That was so cool. You did this, you did that, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, man, I'm somebody now.
And Jake's someone that, we say inside our circle, like you probably wrestled him a few times in this area, but that might have been the first time you wrestled him there in front of a new audience. It is different, right? When you're
it was
in your own circle, but wrestling in an area that's not your own.
And in front of the biggest crowd that I wrestled in front of at that point, I think it was like 1,000, like 1,500 people, something like that. But by that point, me and Jake have wrestled like 25 times.
Right.
So we were there.
So what I like about those shows is a lot of times, especially when we take younger guys like yourself at the time, is we could kind of impress you like, hey, yeah, Daniel Bryan's on the show, or or Bryan Danielson. Sorry, it was way before he was Daniel. No, it was actually when he had that break, right?
He had that break.
Yep. Well, anyways, so you get starstruck a little bit because you're in locker rooms with some of the biggest stars in wrestling as you grew up as a kid. And do you remember any of those early first meets? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm in backstage with this guy.
The first time I did that, Rock and Roll Express. it was one of George's. I can't remember what show it was. It was one of George's many church shows or whatever. And I remember.
But you're too young to remember them.
I remember going on YouTube and seeing them a lot of them. Of course, I wasn't there during their prime, but I remember. No, I remember I was
You weren't there during the prime. Were you born in that prime? What year were you born?
89.
Okay, yeah, you had already missed the whole.
I missed
the whole big run.
Well, no, they had a little run at WWF, right, in the early 90s.
That was not a Rock and Roll Express run. I'm talking about like Four Horsemen. Days,
brother.
Shelby, North Carolina, Packed to the Rafters.
I've seen YouTube footage. That's it for that one.
Yeah, so that's after your time.
But I remember, Rock and Roll Express. George had taken me to a couple shows in West Virginia, and Ricky Morton was there. It was Tennessee with Jake.
Mm-hmm.
And Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson were there, and Robert Gibson pulled me aside and started showing me random little, tricks, how to get from a lockup and stuff like that. I was like, man, he doesn't know me from a can of paint. Why is he feeling the need to tell me all this stuff? And it was just really cool.
But you know why he did that? Because you knew you were a George guy.
That makes sense.
So
I didn't think about that till just now.
Yeah.
7 years later, I just realized.
I mean, you must have run into it. George is one of those guys. He has the respect of all these, guys, and they know once you're a George guy, like okay, you treat it a little differently. And every trainer has it. Like I mean, I'm not saying George is unique. I mean, if you're a Lance Storm guy, I'm sure there's certain people like, oh, you're Lance Storm's kid.
Yeah.
Down here, you're George's kid.
But George's name, and every time I tell him this, he doesn't believe me. George's name carries a lot more weight than people think it does. Like, people think, oh, just around this area, he's well respected. He's well respected everywhere. Mm-hmm. I remember, maybe skipping a little bit, but my first match in Ring of Honor, Adam Pearce was the booker at the time. And me and Caleb Conley went up there just to deliver a ring and some merchandise and stuff like that and kind of help out. And Caleb ended up getting on the show, and I ended up getting on the show. But it was because Brett Albright couldn't make it.
Okay.
So they needed a replacement for someone to wrestle Necro Butcher. And Pierce just walked right up to me and goes, hey, can you bump? I was like, yeah, sure. Who trained you? George South. He goes, oh, all right, get your gear on. You're wrestling Necro. I was like, oh, what? What was that? What happened?
That was Necro.
Oh, God.
That or the lightning around the area. One of the two.
Oh, okay. What'd I say? Oh, yeah. He said, oh, you're wrestling Necro Butcher.
That's twice you said Necro Butcher. Once the
all right,
lights
I want
went
to
out,
stop saying his name. So I wrestled that guy. Right. And, that's how I first got my first booking was mentioning George's
So that was
name.
your first time in Ring of Honor?
Very first time. It was at the arena.
Wow. That's a pretty good start.
Yeah. I started in July. That was January of the following year. January 2010.
So you're saying you were I don't even remember this. So you're saying it was like literally 6 months into wrestling you had a Ring of Honor match?
6 months.
That's pretty crazy.
Insane.
It's pretty crazy to think that you've been wrestling as long as MySpace. Well, MySpace is actually relevant after.
MySpace was dwindling down by the time I started wrestling. It was 09. Okay. So yeah, it was dwindling down.
So before the Biblical Reigns came here, we were talking about your first opportunity to wrestle for Ring of Honor. It was a total circumstantial luck of just driving up, right place, right time. Mm-hmm. You had an opportunity to wrestle with Necro Butcher. What do you remember about Necro? He's a really, for guys who haven't met him, he's a really interesting guy.
He's a really nice guy, super duper smart. But the thing I walk away from that match the most is he hits really, really hard. Mm-hmm. Really, really hard. I remember I walked away with 3 different knots on the side of my head after that match. As nice as he is, as smart as he is, he hits like.
Was that a TV match where they were trying to build him up for something else? Or?
No, it wasn't even on TV. They were going to put it on TV, and then for whatever reason or another, they just had to be a dark match.
So
That was it.
wasn't even on the back of a DVD somewhere. So
Nothing.
you've never even seen it.
I've never seen the match. I don't think I'll ever see the match.
I guess not. Maybe they screwed up with something.
Yeah, that was the same weekend where it was like really big blizzard in Philadelphia, so they're supposed to do 2 days of tapings, but they only did one because the blizzard was so bad.
Right.
So yeah.
But do you think that some of those early Northeast wrestling matches and the exposure you got being in the Northeast kind of opened up a door there to Ring of Honor in the beginning?
I would say so. It definitely helped me with certain crowds in that area. Definitely not the Philly crowd. The Philly crowd, I always thought hated me for a long time.
They probably did in the beginning.
Probably, because I remember that match, going back to the match with Necro. He threw me in the crowd at one time, and then I remember I landed on some people's feet, and they started kicking me
Yeah.
to get me off.
Welcome to Philly. There you go.
So first match in Philly. But yeah, definitely. I think definitely those Northeast matches helped me a lot in that area. Because without Northeast, I probably wouldn't have wrestled there much. Like, even when I was with Ring of Honor full time, I wasn't on a whole bunch of the Northeast shows. So whatever good reputation I have in the Northeast is, I think, a lot to do with my time with Northeast wrestling.
How did that first door open with Ring of Honor? I honestly don't remember how it started. I just remember you got a call and they paired you and Caprice up in the beginning.
Okay, so that all started when they were running, I think it was like 2 years straight. They did the Richmond, Virginia, Charlotte loop, where it was always Richmond the first night, Charlotte the second night. And each time they did it, they would use a Highspots ring. And I remember this is exactly how it was set up. You gave them a discount on the ring if they used some of the guys on the show.
Right.
And it was me and Bobby Dempsey against Caleb and Jake. That was our first, like, I guess, videotaped ROH match, and we got a really good response. We got over with the fans really well. A lot of guys in the back really enjoyed our stuff, and that was I think it was my second ever match at Ring of Honor at the time. Actually, it was the same year. I remember January of 2010 was the match with Necro. 6 months later was
So literally a year in the ring, and then you're already real matches for Ring of Honor. Wow.
Yep.
It's not the way it's supposed to happen.
It is not the way it's supposed to happen. I am extraordinarily lucky. Thanks to Highspots.
Of course. That's
Gotta
why you're
put
here,
Highspots
right?
over.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll beat you up later when I talk about why some people wear McDavid's instead of AMAs on national TV in front of a worldwide audience.
Well, never let me.
We'll get there. That's on the.
I wear Highspots wrist tape though.
Oh, thanks. I didn't see that brand on there. So, going back to the beginning, that you started with Ring of Honor. You weren't even under a contract when you started with you and Caprice, right? It was just kind of a per match deal.
It was really just to see how we look together. I remember I got the email from Delirious saying, "Hey, here we have an idea to do the tag team turmoil thing for the Richmond Charlotte weekend, and we want to put you and Caprice Coleman." I was like, "All right, cool." Prior to that, me and Caprice spent a little time in locker rooms together with when Greg Price was doing the Future Legends shows in Charlotte. So me and Caprice were kind of familiar with each other, but we were literally thrown together, and we had no clue of chemistry or et cetera, and that first night just really clicked. In Richmond, me and him wrestled Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole, who were a tag team at the time, and like one of their hot young tag teams, and we went in there and had a great match with them. Had a great match, really got a really good following. That was the night the CNC Wrestle Factory name was born.
Did you come up with that name, or did they hand it to you?
The fans came up with that name. We did not. We had no.
What do you mean the fans came up
Well,
with that name?
okay, so we had no name of course, at the time, and I remember some people were writing up reviews of the show, and some random sheet, I don't know who it was, some random dirt sheet just called us the CNC Wrestle Factory in reference to the CNC Music Factory, and it stuck. And people just kept calling us that, and it wasn't until like a year and a half later that Ring of Honor actually, all right, well, that's your name. We tried to fight it for so long and come up with different names, and nothing sounded.
Remember
as good.
anything that you pitched to them, name-wise?
Man, we had a bunch of terrible names, but the one I remember that came off to my head was the Queen City Kings.
Okay. Well, we've tried to get a lot of this Queen City out of it. You've used that more than once. Try to get that.
So it just never clicked. Never clicked.
So, what do you remember about that? I mean, you're the lowest guy on the totem pole coming in,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
doing tag team stuff, you know, which is, you know, where they start a lot. It's like with Ring of Honor, they start a lot of guys off in the tag team, kind of see how things work out. What do you remember about that first year and some of those matches that you had with Caprice?
As much as me and Caprice clicked in the ring, I always found it really hard to work with him sometimes because we come from two different I don't say genres, but generations of wrestling. Where he started wrestling 2001, 2000-ish, like that. I didn't come in until 9 years later in 2009, and so our outlook on wrestling was a lot different. So it took a minute for us to really get on the same page, and we did finally get on the same page. We ended up having to break the team up, but it was always good. Caprice, okay, so people would think with me being Caprice's junior, that I would be the one who's most excited, trying to, let's do all this stuff. No, Caprice was the one who wanted to do everything. He wanted to be the most spectacular show that we could possibly put on, and I was kind of trying to play the hey, this is my role. I'm just the guy here to make everyone look good. So I had to pull him back a lot. And then at some point, we found that even ground where not only can we make our opponents look good and et cetera, but we can also like stars too. And I just feel like we didn't get quite the run out of it that we should have.
You know, in my memory, what I remember is that you really didn't like being in a tag team period. It had nothing to do with Caprice, but
No.
you were hoping to get out of a tag team period because you kind of felt like being a tag team where you were, there was kind of a ceiling on it, and you wanted to try to break out. And I remember your first year in. It's interesting how a career goes. Like right now, where Cedric's value, your stock is way up there. You just had that match with Ibushi that hasn't even aired on TV yet, and everybody's super excited about it. You've had some great matches in Evolve recently, so Cedric's stock's really high. And then not even too long ago, Cedric's stock was a little lower.
Super low.
But you were the guy that they looked in that tag team. They said, "Man, he needs a little more experience." But man, sky's the limit with Cedric. You were ready to get out and ready to be that single star right away.
Oh, I was starving to get out of that tag team. But I also realized that this is a way for people to invest in me and see that I can be a singles guy, but I can work in a tag team too and still be just as good.
So you said before I went on that diatribe that you felt like it got broken up too early.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really match up with not wanting to be in a tag team. Did it finally kind of hit the point where you were happy with it and then it got broken up? Is that what we're saying?
Pretty much. Like I just didn't like tag team wrestling as much, but when I finally started, like, man, this tag team thing really feels natural to me. We ended up breaking the team up, and that was when I started getting more invested in the team and started putting more into it is when we saw our most success, and fans like really started getting behind us. And then right as we were like starting to peak out and like these guys could be the team, they broke us up.
Who broke you up? Delirious.
It was Delirious. It was.
Why do you think he made that decision at that point to break you up?
I'm not 100% sure, but I guess the obvious answer would be they saw something with me as a singles guy, because right after he broke us up, I got this monster push into a rivalry with Roderick Strong for the next 6-7 months after that. So that I would assume that was the obvious answer to that.
Well, yeah, they did, but it was more of a. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was more of a rivalry with the whole decade.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But I thought it was weird because they broke you up. They put you in singles, and you would think the way to get you over as a singles is maybe give you a couple wins here. So, but they didn't seem to follow that routine. They kind of, you didn't win, and then you got to Roderick, and then all of a sudden you did win.
Yeah. It was a weird form. I don't know.
It's
really weird.
It's weird booking.
It's really weird
is.
booking.
If we want to put the rocket on the guy, you don't cut his legs out.
It was, and I think Ring of Honor always had this thing where they really focus more so on the quality of the matches you have and not whether you win or lose. Because if you look at it back when Cole was starting to come up and O'Reilly was starting to come up, they lost a lot of matches, but it was also them proving that they could hang with Generico or Lethal or Steen or whoever they were wrestling at the time, and to be on that same level with the quality, not necessarily I beat blah 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 blah. So I guess that's what they went with. I it was always weird to me. It was always hard for me, I think, to get fans behind me when I'm constantly losing for God knows what reason.
Well, what was management saying to you when you were doing this first singles push? Were they happy with the direction? Were they giving you feedback on things that they wanted you to change?
Not really. It was a lot of oh, you're doing good. Just keep having great matches and et cetera, et cetera. I got more feedback from Steve Carino, who wasn't really involved in the book at the time. He was telling me how to help get over a character in my matches and stuff like that, because I wasn't doing a whole lot of talking.
You never did.
I hardly ever. I made that whole run to Roger. I may have cut 3 promos tops, and I just didn't feel like I got a character over enough to people to be fully invested. I always thought that, yeah, I had great matches, and that's the only reason they liked me. Mm-hmm. Like there really was no this is who Cedric is.
And I think for like Ring of Honor, the live show, you know what you can do in the ring is really all that matters. But then when you go to Ring of Honor, the TV product, you know, you have to be able to back it up with a little bit of character. You know, definitely the ability to talk, and you know that was not your strongest suit.
No, it still isn't. I'm still working on that.
It's improving, and I know you practice it more so than you ever did before. You know, what things do you do now where you kind of trip? I know that you've taken a lot of initiative, at least at these regional shows that I see you at. You tend to grab the mic more than you ever did before, and I don't know if it's forcing yourself to make sure it's making yourself a better person, or if you're consciously doing that, or if it's just the role you're given.
That's exactly what it is. Like, there's a lot of these shows where they don't really want me to grab a mic, but it's kind of me big leaguing and say, no, I'm going to grab this mic because I need to talk. Right. Because if I never do it, I'm never going to get better at it. So I am self-consciously forcing myself to talk on the mic so that I feel more comfortable. And so especially at PWX or AML, where I just grab a mic and just start going. And it forces me to gain that comfortability. And I feel like I have it where I can talk in front of a crowd of people and feel 100% comfortable and give a great promo. But talking in front of camera always seems different. You know what I mean?
So it's harder to do the promo, like you just did a promo with a cruiserweight thing after your win. Like, was that an awkward feeling for you to be just one-on-one with a camera?
It was more awkward because I may be giving away some secrets here, but they don't like you to look directly into the camera. They want you to look away from it, so it's not you staring into a camera, it's you talking more with the interviewer.
Was that the first time you were ever told that?
First time ever. And I never really realized that that's, if you watch the product, no one ever looks right into the camera. Never. And for me, it was weird that I wasn't looking at a camera to do a promo, but I felt more comfortable. So, I don't know, it's something about looking right down the barrel of the camera that just
Well, if it makes you more comfortable in our interview, just look right here. Okay, don't look here.
Staring off in the distance.
That's interesting, because if you look back at, like, you know, the WWE from like the 80s and maybe even the 90s, I mean, it was like dead here, you're the fans, come to see me at the arena type thing. So, I mean, it's a change over time, I guess, that it's just the style they want to change to.
It works for me, so I've never
Did you get a lot of feedback in terms of the television product from Ring of Honor? I mean, other than, hey, card cam's here.
You mean as far as like promos?
Well, promos or anything about anything direction, because you know you look at Ring of Honor was a TV product for the most part. I mean, they do live shows certainly, but it's a TV product and it's a learning experience for everybody there. A lot of those guys never had the benefit of being part of the WWE machine and going through that formal training of having to deal with TVs and promos. So it's the first experience that you had and a lot of others are having with a TV product.
Yeah, the only thing I was ever really told is acknowledge the camera. That was really about it. So like when it comes to promos, they always want you to look at the camera and get the expression over on your face. And as far as in-ring product, always acknowledge the hard cam and stuff like that, which you know, it just should be like that for any show, whether it's a live event or whatever. Always acknowledge the hard cam, because no matter, especially with being videotaped, that's where most of the audience is going to end up being. So that was really about it. There wasn't a lot of, I guess, formal training to say as far as camera angles and where to be here, where to be there, where to be there. It was always just acknowledge the camera that's there.
Sure.
That's it.
Do you remember any matches that, because you did so many matches, I mean, there's nobody you didn't work as part of CNC. I mean,
No.
like you look through there, sometimes it was 6 minutes, sometimes it was just tags, but I mean it was incredible the amount of people you got to work. Are any that like stand out for you that you're like, oh man, that's what I really, when I think of my time with Caprice, this is the match that holds up for me?
2 matches. The match that me and Caprice first had against the American Wolves in Asheboro, North Carolina, I believe.
Asheville, man.
Asheville.
Don't think Ring of Honor went to Asheboro.
No, Asheville. Sorry, Asheville, North Carolina. That to me was the match that said we can hang with anyone. And from that point on, actually it was at that show we debuted our first T-shirts. We had T-shirts for a little bit, and it was after that we started. That's actually when I felt more comfortable as a tag team, because that match went so well, and we gelled very, very good with Eddie and Davey. And it was from that point on that we started having better and better matches as a tag team. And then the second match is our last match that we had as a tag team with Red Dragon.
Okay.
Where it was essentially our state as a tag team versus the tag titles. And we ended up losing that match, but like it was that night in Columbus, the people thought we were in the belts. It was built that way, and like they legitimately felt like we could have been tag champs. And when we didn't win, I was like, oh, big letdown. But
probably a bigger letdown for Caprice, right? Because he kind of felt. I think Caprice is not. He's not out of the loop. I think he knew that part of it being separated was to give you a run as a singles guy, and he ended up doing some announcing. I think more so than he still did in-ring stuff, but they really didn't have much of an idea for him in the ring after that.
Right, he was doing more commentary stuff, and for him, which I think is his strong suit, and he's said that for years. That of course he loves wrestling in the ring, but you put him in front of Mike, he's fired. You can't shut him down.
So you don't think he was incredibly disappointed just to be transitioning into that?
No, no. He kind of felt like no, they want to push you as a singles guy, and he was very supportive. He was like, hey, you kill it, and like he always told me that that you're so good in the ring, and when they break us up, man, you're gonna get a rocket and just take off. I was like, no, man, because I'm always really modest, and I'm my own worst critic. So when someone tells me, oh, you're so great, I'm like, I'm okay. I just don't feel like I'm the real Cedric doesn't feel like he's the best wrestler in the world. But if you put me in front of people, oh, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. But yeah, Caprice is always supportive, and he was one of the guys when I wouldn't have 100% faith in myself, he would always pick me right back up. So he was 100% supportive.
This is totally me reading the situation. Like I've always felt like I've watched you for years kind of be like a headliner in the Carolinas for the PWX or whoever else you're working for that weekend. And it just seems like you have a different level of confidence when you're not working for Ring of Honor than working for local indies.
Right.
And I know that you've kind of crushed it over in England and Germany and Cleveland and things like that. And it just seemed like most of the time in Ring of Honor, you didn't have that same confidence, even though the in-ring performance was still there. And I think it translates differently. Maybe it comes across differently to the crowds because everyone here always says, "Man, I just don't understand why Cedric's not like here," because we see him and we know what he's capable of doing. Do you feel like you ever had maybe a confidence issue in Ring of Honor more so than somewhere else?
Yes, 100%. It's especially my last 2 years there. I was in a real.
Well, that's a different situation.
But wait, yes, but in general, especially during the singles run, I felt. I don't want to say hindered, but I felt like there was always a ceiling for me. Like, during the rivalry with Roddy, I felt like I was really giving really good matches and really excelling past what people thought that I would do. And I don't feel like I ever saw a payoff to that. I felt like, and this isn't just me saying this. I've talked to Elgin and Kyle O'Reilly and stuff like that, and they've told me this, that I'm one of their favorite guys to wrestle, and I always felt like I was one of the better in-ring performers in that company, and I never really got my just due. And then when when I started getting a little bit of steam, and people would get behind me, like with Roddy, the big blow off, I beat him in a submission match with his own move. That was a big moment. And then I went to TV, the following TV taping after that, and beat Jay Lethal. It was a great moment, and had a world title match against Elgin. And then from that point on, I was like, downhill, and I could never figure out why. I gave great matches with everyone.
Let's try to figure it out. Let's do it right here. Let's try to figure it out.
All right.
So let's test a couple of theories. Number one is,
Okay.
Did Delirious was the booker at this point, so we're going to assume that he made the decisions, whether it be by himself or with others. Okay. Do you think you had a very good relationship with Delirious, or were you kind of just like one of those I show up to work and do what you tell me type of guys? Because
I was the you give me a job, I'll do it. That was it. Me and Delirious never really had a tight relationship. It was always, you're the boss, I'm the employee. You give me a job, I would do my best ability to make it happen for you.
I mean, I'm not backstage, so I don't know how many people are his friends, so to speak. But, but do you think that maybe having a better, more personal relationship with that booker, that particular booker, would have been a different result?
That's hard to say, because some people who I know he's close with got whatever they wanted. And then I know some people who weren't as close with him, but he liked his wrestlers, seem to, also get a great... I don't know. That's a hard one. That's a hard one to say. But I always felt like it was more of a... He always had more of a personal feeling towards someone in order to give them a push or whatever. Like when Dalton Castle came in, and he had that... he came in for the top prospect, and he had the great entrance with the boys and the wings and everything. Like, that was something I thought gave him that, hey, you're going to the moon now. We're going to do all this stuff with you, blah, blah, blah. And I think he gravitated towards that. And while I was kind of sitting on the back burner going, well, I'm here too. I give great matches, I mean, and he was given...
Well, I don't know if Dalton was given great matches.
What?
It was a great spectacle.
It was great. It was a great spectacle. I mean, it was something that made dudes go, ooh, and then he just ran with it.
To his credit, I think Delirious has done a phenomenal job taking Ring of Honor to a different level. It's always been known for its great in-ring product, but trying to serve TV is a completely different animal.
Yes.
And he's kind of diversified it. Getting women involved, getting the Dalton Castles involved. Integrating maybe the international guys that they've had an opportunity to use. That's a tough job to do.
It really is. And like I remember, I would like want to talk to him about stuff when he's having his production meetings, and I would see him like stressing out over stuff. And it's like he walks around the locker room sometimes and he's wired and he can't really focus because he's trying to focus on 8 different things at one time. But as a whole, I think he's doing a great job. That I have my own personal feelings about certain stuff. Like I just don't think he focuses enough on the home talent. You know what I mean?
Okay.
He does a lot with the international talent, which, don't get me wrong, they're the draw. Like when New Japan's in town, houses go up. But at the same time, they're not always going to be there. And I always felt like some of the hardest workers always got passed by.
Let's test another theory. Let's test the theory of race. I've heard you say this before, so I'm going to put it in your... I'm going to put the words back in your mouth and see where they go.
All right.
Like, I remember you used to always jokingly say, well, they've already got a black guy. They've already got Jay Lethal. Or, oh, they already got their black flippy guy. They already got ACH. Do you think that, and this is not a comment that he's a racist guy or anything, but do you think because there was Jay Lethal, there was ACH, that maybe there wasn't a clear-cut spot for Cedric?
Sometimes I do feel that way because like you said before, when you look at it, they have Jay, who's at the top. Then you have ACH, who is the most athletic guy in that company. And then you had Moose, who was someone totally different from the both of them. He was gigantic and could still do some athletic stuff. So I always felt like I had a weird angle why I couldn't quite fit in, because I always felt like I could wrestle just as good as Jay, and I was almost as athletic as ACH. So I was in that weird spot where there's no clear-cut spot for me. So yeah, that's I could see that. I can see that definitely be a thing.
Well, I kind of cut you off when I started the race. I think you were going in a direction and an idea that may have been in your mind of like why things after Roderick didn't go the way that you and others envisioned it. Did you have an idea? Did you have a
Not really, because I was always looking and asking, hey, what can I do better? And then I always get the, oh, you're doing great, just keep doing what you're doing kind of thing. And I always felt like I was missing something, but I could never figure out what it was. And Steve Carino, who still to this day helps me with stuff, he was the guy I always went to, like, what am I missing? What is setting me apart from being just a good wrestler to being top guy wrestler? And he'd always say, you need people to invest in you, or you're a great wrestler. That's fantastic. But you have that Roderick Strong syndrome where, yeah, you can be an amazing wrestler, but if no one can connect to you as a person, you're always going to be at that same mid-card level.
That's a great comparison because, Roderick's gone to points just like I think your Ring of Honor career where he's had amazing highs and lows. And, he seems to, after 10 years, his last run with Ring of Honor, he really connected with the fans, which I'm going to give credit to his PWG work.
Yep.
It kind of tweaked his character a little bit, I think. But sometimes just changing environments kind of like is helpful.
100%. And it's one of those things where Ring of Honor is with that place that wrestling. But then once you go, okay, I can wrestle, but now I need the character. That's when it all clicked. And I figured that out too late with Ring of Honor. And I think Roddy figured out just right time when he needed to.
Another guy that hasn't come up, but I know he was, I don't want to say a mentor of yours, but I know he gave you a lot of feedback before he left, was Kevin Steen. Kevin opened up a lot of doors for you, particularly with PWG, but I think he was also one of your greatest lobbyists while he was in Ring of Honor.
100%. He went to bat for me more times than I can count. And I remember his last night at Ring of Honor after he wrestled Steve Carino. He got on the mic, and this didn't air on TV, but it's all over YouTube, that he said, and I will always be indulgent for even saying this about me, that I was the next biggest star in Ring of Honor. Now, he said that in front of Taven, Tommaso, and a bunch of other guys who were like really great wrestlers, but for him to stick me out in that same aspect and say that, no, this is the guy, really meant something to me, because I didn't think he saw me in that light. I mean, of course he helped me a lot, and he got me into PWG and et cetera, but I just didn't think he saw me in that light. And then knowing that he did really meant a lot to me, and I always felt I was trying to make him proud by working harder, and I'm going to be that star that he always said I could be. But then Ariel, my fiance, always...
I'm going to call her your wife, just to make it easier.
We've been together so long. She always said that since Kevin Steen said that, they've just buried you for so long. And I was like, I mean, I'm trying not to be too much of a pessimist here. I was like, just coincidence, whatever. But I don't know, like, yeah, he said that on TV taping where I wrestled Jay and he wrestled Carino, and then ever since then,
Well, that's a theory.
It's a weird theory. It's a you got to stretch to get it, but
Right.
yeah, that's one of the many I've heard.
I think anybody, if you're a good booker, I mean, anybody can get over. I mean, maybe not long term, but you can get them over. And I don't know, maybe just my view of it is like you were never paired with the right guy to bring out what I think would be the best in you. You need a guy that is a really strong heel, got a lot of personality, and maybe it balances out with your athleticism, and you're that natural baby face with all the energy that you have, and your comebacks are some of the strongest parts of your repertoire. People really get excited when you're making your comebacks, but you never seem to get paired with that right guy, I felt.
Jimmy Jacobs said that too. I remember right before he was on his way out, his biggest regret in the run with the whole decade thing was that I was paired with Roddy and not him.
Yeah, because he would have been a good guy.
He thought I should have been paired with him, and looking back on it, I agree 100%. The matches may not have been, super duper indie wrestling spots or whatever, but I felt like it would have carried more emotion with Jimmy.
Another guy that I think kind of took your spot in some ways, and I know you're going to maybe think this is nuts, is Adam Page. because Adam Page is a guy, and listen, I love Adam. Adam is one of our boys. I mean, he's our circle. So I'm speaking about him. I'm a big fan of his work, but it seemed like, you know, he was another guy that they didn't really have an idea from him at first. Mm-hmm. They could see the potential in him. He's always performed in the ring, but didn't really have that strong character. And it seems like they've put enough on his plate, and they've given him enough of a character now where he really stands out, and he's at the top of his game. So.
In Japan now, super happy for him. I love Page.
But do you ever look at him and think like, you know, like I wish that's the process that I would have had. I would have been paired with the right guys, been given that I don't know, that the way to connect with the fans. Sometimes you need a little help. You can't just say, "Here's a mic, go ahead and connect with the fans." I mean, maybe Carino could do that, but not everybody can do that.
When you put it that way, yeah. I always felt Page was another guy who I thought could have done a lot more when he did, but in the long run, I think it really helped him to kind of be below the radar and be with Jimmy and BJ and be under that learning tree. And then when he finally broke apart from them, just like it's really great how he came up. And I felt I probably could have gone that route and probably would have been way better for me in the long run, because I could have been in the Bullet Club. That would have been awesome. But no, it's great for him though.
Bridge the gap for me between the end of the Roderick Strong feud and being paired up with Moose.
Okay.
What happened in Ring of Honor in between those two times for you?
I was just wrestling, making people look good. That was it. I was just I had a lot of good matches though. I thought me and Kazarian had a good match. Me and Christopher Daniels had a really good match. I was just it seemed like I was booked as that underdog who never could quite break that glass ceiling, so to speak. I was just another guy having good matches. That was it.
I saw a guy that had his confidence really shattered and was unclear of his future, because I remember you had a contract that was up for renewal that you were not sure of which direction that was going to go in.
Yes. After the match with Roddy, I was kind of coasting around, and I think it was... I don't remember the exact time frame, but I remember my contract was up around that time, and then they re-signed me for another 18 months. But before that, I didn't think I was going to be around much longer. I felt like my days were numbered, and I was like, man, I had already hit the hot thing with Roddy. It got over really good, and now I'm just kind of here. And luckily for me at the time, they re-signed me, and it was like, cool. All right, cool. Round 2, let's try it again. And still kind of coasting by, just doing whatever. And it's going to sound weird to say this, but after Roddy, when that didn't plan out and I was kind of like another dude, my confidence all the way down. Like, I almost didn't like coming to Ring of Honor shows, because I just knew, man, I'm going to have a good match.
You're putting over tonight.
Exactly. Which, it's wrestling. You know, I mean, you got to put people over because it may not just be your time. But I felt so wholeheartedly that it was my time, and it wasn't. That time never really came, and I just kind of, man, all right, Ring of Honor show, all right, who I'm putting over this time.
So where were you excited to wrestle at that point? Like, what
PWX.
Excited you? PWX?
PWX, I was always excited to wrestle there. The little bit of time I was with PWG, I was excited for that. I was essentially excited to wrestle everywhere else except Ring of Honor. As bad as that sounds.
Well, PWX was kind of, to a lot of other people's jealousy, you know, you were spoon-fed like all the guys that were coming in. Like, you know, it didn't matter who came in. Hey, they're going to work Cedric, they're going to have a good match, and it was like a formula. So, in a lot of ways, I mean, you know, PWX was you or Caleb wrestling whoever we're bringing in that month.
Yeah, and that was what saved my confidence, I think, because if it wasn't for me having these great matches and really proving to myself that I can wrestle PJ Black, and I can wrestle Samoa Joe, and I can wrestle Tommaso, whoever they're bringing in, and I can hang with those guys. To me, that's more or less what saved my belief in wrestling, because it was to a point where I'm not doing anything. I'm working for, I guess some people call it the third biggest company in the world in Ring of Honor, and I'm just another dude just twiddling his thumbs, and I was just...
See, I'm surprised, like, a guy, like, I remember coming off that AJ Styles match that you had PWX, like, and he was super hot at that time and working part-time for Ring of Honor. I'm surprised he didn't say, hey, listen, you're not using this kid here the right way. I just had a killer match with him. let's put him with me on the show.
I don't know if he's ever done that, but I know people have done that.
Give me one example of someone who's done that.
Well, I already say Steve Carino, but I know Kevin Kelly was a big supporter of mine for a while.
But was he watching your other work?
I sent him my work all the time. I sent him that match I had with Jay Lethal at PWX when he was here, and the match with AJ. Like I sent him a lot of stuff, and he always gave me great feedback and said, "Man, we really need something for you." And he was right there with Steve, just, "Hey, give Cedric something." Mm-hmm. That's what, to my knowledge, what he always told me.
So I thought it was kind of strange that, after not really having any direction with you, you ultimately are the one who ends Moose's winning streak.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know how much of that was going to happen well ahead of time, or was it kind of show up and they tell you how things are going to go down?
I think I might have known a week, maybe even 2 weeks in advance. And I always thought, okay, it's weird. But in my mind, I was like, okay, so maybe this is a big turning point for me, and maybe I can really make something out of this. And for a while, it did. I got a nice push as a heel, and fans were...
But you had never been a heel anywhere else before, right?
I have, but never on bigger stages, Ring of Honor. It was always like, I'm a heel here 1 month, heel the next month. It wasn't anything that was consistent. But Ring of Honor really, hey, go be a heel. I was like, all right, cool. And we tried it out, and it got over really well. Me and Moose worked really well together. He's one of my favorite guys to wrestle. Everything just clicked. Like, those first few matches we had, the first one where I actually beat him, that was a big shocker, and people blew up over that. And the next match we had, the Death Before Dishonor, got a really good reaction. And then was the no DQ match where he speared me through the table. That got a great reaction. And that was our big blow off, and it was a big thing. And then, just like with Roddy, that happened, and all right.
Did you like the idea of being paired with Veda and her kind of being a mouthpiece for you?
At first, I didn't like the idea of being paired with Veda. Just 'cause I never really had a manager with me before, so I was very uncomfortable with having someone talk for me all the time. I didn't like that she talked for me all the time. At some point, I got okay with her being my manager because we actually get along pretty well. We have pretty good chemistry, I think, as a unit. But I just didn't like that I was expected to go of a character through her, and she was the one who did all my verbiage, and I would just kind of stand there in the background, nodding my head, kind of, yep, whatever you say, boss lady. I don't think it helped me character-wise at all.
Did they give you any type of feedback from your heel run, so to speak, that they wanted to see you take it somewhere, that it wasn't coming across on TV? Because, like you said, you did the thing with Moose, and it could have been something bigger, but it seems like they didn't have an idea to follow up with Moose.
I got a couple things just on how to be a better heel, and not necessarily from The Office. It was more so from guys like Roderick and Bobby Fish, and they give me little pointers in how to be more heelish. And one thing that always stuck out to me, and Credo told me this, is in Ring of Honor there really aren't any heels, because everyone wants to look cool, everyone wants to do their stuff and get over really well. And I think I was one of the few guys who said, I don't want to do any of my stuff. I'm here to take all your moves, make you look like the monster babyface, and then I sneak away with stuff. That was one of the things to me that I think made me different. Like Jay Lethal at the time, who was supposed to be the biggest heel in the company, really came off more as a babyface because he was able to still do all his dives and stuff like that. It was in my opinion, he spent more time getting himself over than his actual opponent. I thought that's just my personal opinion on it. And if I really look back at my heel time there, Silas Young was another guy who I think was only one of the one true heels in the company. And yeah, man, in Ring of Honor, like, you can't really be a heel because everyone wants to look cool. And if you don't look like an idiot,
so you have to balance it. You want to have the best match. You want to make your opponent look great, but at some point you have to be selfish enough to kind of protect your worth.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone there is really a true heel because everyone wants to look awesome and no one wants to look like an idiot. Which, as a heel, I think you have to at some point in time.
You had a couple of instances, and it was even outside of Ring of Honor, where because you're really aggressive, your style it's real snug sometimes. There were a couple of injuries that happened, some that were your fault, so to speak, and others that were not. Did you have any type of repercussions within Ring of Honor because of the injury to Roderick?
No, it was more just, hey, watch it. I was like, okay, cool. And it was one of the things, I talked to Roderick after that, and it wasn't like anything malicious or, with cruel intent. It was one of those things, it's wrestling, stuff happens. And
take us through what did happen with Roderick, because I know a lot of people may not even know.
Oh, yeah, it was so quick, I don't think I even realized it, but it was Survivor of the Fittest weekend, the first night. Me and Roderick wrestled for a qualifying match. Somewhere during the match, I caught him with I can't remember what it's called. It's the Nakajima kick. Walk up the corner, come back with enziguri. Mm-hmm. So, bang, popped him. He was knocked loopy, but he still finished the match. Everything was fine. He wasn't, he didn't, lose memory or anything like that. It was just bang, I caught him. All right, and then he finished the match. Everything came off great. The next night, he felt like he might have had concussion, so he took time off, and I was approached by the office and said, hey, be careful next time. And
who approached you?
I don't want to name names, but office came up to me and said, be careful. And I was like, all right, cool, I understand. But
I bet you it was longer than that.
Oh, it was a little bit longer, but I'm giving the gist of it. Okay. Or and then I was also said that, hey, you're starting to get a reputation now. It was okay. That was one time. All right, cool, whatever.
Was it one time, Cedric?
In Ring of Honor, it was one time. It was that.
But everybody hears things. So.
Everyone hears things, and it's like you're starting to get a reputation.
It was the same move too, right? That you were getting that reputation off of.
Yeah, it was the same move. That one move, and it was okay. 3 strikes. All right, that's it. I'm not gonna do it anymore. Happened the second time with Ishii. At the Las Vegas weekend, I wrestled him. We had a great match. Short, but it was great. And that was another thing with that walk up kick. Bang, caught him. Once again, it wasn't like I knocked him out.
But why do you think it is? And I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to make you look bad. Hey, AJ Styles, his finisher seems to not work out all the time.
Right.
People, but what is it about that move that you think makes it more susceptible to concussions?
I think it's just the positioning of it. Jay Lethal actually pointed this out to me when it happened with Roddy. It's because it was one of the moves that Low Key used to do, and it's just the positioning of how you set the move up. So when I walk up the corner, my back is to you, so it's hard to tell where you are. So if you're not where you are when I started, and you move, it changes the trajectory, whatever you want to call it, of the move. So when I come back and give it to you, if you're over here, too close, bang, you're caught. Mm-hmm. But if you're just where you are to begin with, I can still gauge it because in my mind you're still there.
Right.
And I've given that move to AJ Styles. He took it just fine. It's one of those things where.
Being on the other side of the Styles Clash is the move that he's injured a few people with. I mean, you've taken the Styles Clash a few times. So why is that move, to take that move, a little more difficult, I guess, for some than others?
I've had my own theories on it, but I guess I would say the way AJ put it to me when he gave it to me, he told me stare at the mat or look up, should I say. And I guess people get terminology mixed up. So when you're upside down like that, you have to look up, which is technically down at that time.
Okay.
But then I think some people look up at their feet, but it's flip-flopped. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So when people look at their feet, of course your head is tucked, and that's when bad things happen. But as long as you stare at the mat and you stay there, you'll just fine. There's no way you could mess that up then, but people tend to want to see where they're going, and they tend to look down at their feet, so they're upside down.
Sometimes they want to make it overly dramatic.
Overly dramatic, mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Seems like a lot of people, you mentioned a lot of the wrestlers in Ring of Honor, to sum up your Ring of Honor career, it seems like a lot of people feel like they dropped the ball with you.
Yep.
It's like they never really got as much out of you as what they should have. I mean, now that you've been a couple of months removed from it, what do you think, looking back on it, you could have done differently to maybe change the course of that?
I could have sustained my confidence. I remember when I first got my singles push and I started getting bigger matches. Looking back now, and I wish I would have changed this. Looking back now, I was constantly looking for approval. Looking for, am I good? Did I do good? Tell me I'm good. I was always, instead of believing in myself, I was waiting for someone else to believe in me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I never looked at my matches or my stuff and said, oh, that was great or that was good. I was always like, oh, that's crap. And I waited, I was self-consciously, I guess, waiting on someone to tell me, no, you're good. You're going to be that guy, kind of thing. I was just waiting on that to happen. And it wasn't until, April, I finally say, you know what? I know I'm a good wrestler. I'm tired of having to ask people, am I a good wrestler? I know I'm good. I know I can go in there with anyone and have a great match. At the time I was in England when I had this epiphany. And I remember I wrestled a couple guys I'd never wrestled before, like Chris Ridgway is a guy from England who I'd never touched before. Had a fantastic match with him. There's another guy, Joseph. I feel bad I don't remember his name. He was Southside champion at the time, but his name was Joseph. I can't remember his last name. Had a great match, great tag match with him. And I was like, I can work with anyone, and I can have a great match with anyone. And then I remember I came back from England, and my next Ring of Honor show was May. It was the weekend of that New Japan was there, and I wrestled in a 4-way, and it was a TV match, and it was a good match, but I was just like, man, I can't wait to just like blow this place up. Like I in my mind, I knew I was a great wrestler, but I just felt like being there, I was like, I'm not in a position to be as good as I want to be. And I remember when I left there, that was Wednesday. On Saturday, that was my last match there. And when I left there, I was on a mission to just show everyone that I'm better than what you thought I was. And I feel like at this point is what, 2.5 months after I've done just that.
Well, before we get there,
okay,
reel it back just one step for me.
Okay.
Because you recently did an interview with Mike Johnson, and I listened to it, and I was trying to I want to make it a little different than Mike's interview. And the one issue I had really with it was we went a little soft on Ring of Honor about how things ended. And I know after you telling me that you didn't want to mention who gave you the warning, you're probably not going to want to go too deep into this, but I'm going to get what I can out of you.
All right.
Your last day at Ring of Honor wasn't well planned. That wasn't what you thought your last day was. Tell me what, in your mind, when you were finishing up, the direction you thought you were headed with Ring of Honor.
Okay, so I'll give you the whole scenario. Just came back from England. Wednesday, the TV tapings in Toronto was the next show I was on. And I remember I got there and I was like, I don't know what's happening. My contract's been up since New Year's Day. I've mentioned to them that I would like to stay, and no one ever got back to me on anything, so I'm kind of twiddling my thumbs.
So your contract was up New Year's Day, and you were working for essentially 5 months without a contract.
Yep. And just twiddling my thumbs, I would send emails to guys saying, hey, I would like to really talk this over and stuff like that. But, okay, we're going to backtrack a little bit more. So my contract was up New Year's Day. I was accepted to do the WWE tryout camp, and that went really well.
That was February?
February. Mm-hmm. February. It was February 15th, something like this, so mid-February. That got over really well. I was well received. Everyone liked me, and they told me they had ideas of using me. And I was like, okay, cool. And that's when they told me, hey, if you could drop 25 pounds, we'll put you in Cruiserweight Classic. I was like, yes, I will drop 25 pounds. But prior to me even going there, I did get in contact with Ring of Honor and told them, hey, they're going to use me for the tryout. They want me to go to the tryout camp. I'm going to see how this goes and whatever. And they were fine with that. They were like, okay, cool. Do what you got to do. We appreciate the warning. Tell us how it goes and whatever. All right, I came back. It went well. I mentioned to them that they may use for the Cruiserweight thing. I don't know, but I would really like to stay here. Can we talk contract thing, whatever. Nothing. Said, hey, well, yeah, we'll talk about it in May, March, whatever it is, and I never got it. Never got anything back on that. I was like, all right, cool. So I went February, 2 more months or so, and just waited. And then I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm not under contract. I can do what I want. So this is me trying to trim weight, trying to get ready for the Cruiserweight Classic, because I don't know if they're going to use me yet or officially. I'm just kind of twiddling my thumbs on that. And then I got in contact with Gabe Sapolsky through the ideas from WWE saying, hey, talk to Gabe here. If you know, you lose the weight and everything goes right, we may do something like qualified match with you, whatever. So I do that, get in contact with Gabe. He's very real receiving of me coming in to Evolve and doing some stuff, whether it's WWE related or not, whatever. Then he announced me the day I came back to Ring of Honor that Wednesday. And to me, I'm like, look, I'm not under contract, I can do what I want, whatever. So I come in there just thinking, it's another indie right now for me.
And you probably looked at it and said, well, Roderick's done this too.
Roderick's done this, Leo Rush has done it, like Moose, like guys were working for Evolve and still doing Ring of Honor here and there. So I came into it thinking, well, whatever, you know, I'm just gonna do my thing. And then I remember I was flagged down and pulled into the office, and we were talking about so what's up with the Cruiserweight Classic? And I was like, well, I lost the weight, they want to use me, etc. They were cool with that. I remember I emailed Delirious and he was like, maybe we can make an angle out of this. I was like, all right, cool, whatever. And fast forward to this Wednesday when I'm having this meeting, and we're sitting there, and it's like, okay, so they had to sit down with me and told me about, all right, Cruiserweight Classic, that's cool, whatever, but you got to book for Evolve. I was like, yep. They asked me, okay, is that WWE related or not? And I was like, yeah. I mean, they told me to get in contact with Gabe and, you know, whatever. I was like, yeah, so I did it. And they're like, okay. And they put it, the way they put it to me was, we're going to let you focus on the Cruiserweight Classic and WWE stuff, and just get back in contact with us if that doesn't go how you want it to or whatever. And I was like, okay. Which was weird to me because they knew about it beforehand, and I told them. And they had even given me dates throughout to July to do stuff in Ring of Honor, and I was like, okay, this is strange. And they kind of put like, hey, we don't allow our guys to work for Evolve and stuff like that. It's a lot of heat between us and Evolve for whatever reason. And in my head, they're saying this to me, and I'm like, but Leo Rush just worked for them. Roddy's spent months working for them when he wasn't under contract. Moose did it when he was under contract, so I don't understand. And there's nothing in my contract that says I couldn't do it. And besides, I'm not even under contract, so why can't I? I was like, all right, whatever, cool, I understand that. Do what you got to do.
So at no point did Ring of Honor offer you a contract that you just didn't sign?
Nope.
Because you were waiting to see how other things went? At
no point did they even attempt to offer me a contract.
So that was on a Wednesday that they pulled you in the office, and so was it the very next Saturday that they said this is your last show?
No, they said Wednesday was my last day. They told me Wednesday, Saturday was going to be my last day.
Okay.
I guess because I already bought the flight or whatever, so they're like, just cut it off right there instead of waiting until July. And they're like, hey, the door's always open. Get in touch with us mid-July and let us know how it goes, and et cetera, et cetera. I was like, all right, cool. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate my time here. It was fine. And I just remember going, something's not right with that. It just didn't feel right. And backtrack a little bit more, I skipped this. They told me that I had gained a reputation for being stiff and being unsafe. And that, quote unquote, people were reluctant to work me because I was so stiff. And that really struck a nerve with me because I've been knocked out by guys in the ring many a times. And I understand the point that it's wrestling. So it just blew my mind. And they gave me a list of names of guys that I supposedly injured, and I was like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I just...
Did they ever give you a name of a guy who specifically said they didn't want to work with you?
No, never. Like, in my opinion, I was always well received by the guys in the locker room. The only time I really butted heads with anyone was with Roddy. But we ended up working well together, and we're cool. I was.
See, and I've never heard that about you either, and it seems like everybody always seems to say great things about. And I'm having that right now where I'm not going to mention the name, but I've heard of a certain guy, and there's a lot of the guys that don't want to work this particular guy, and it's for those very reasons. So when they happen, it's usually you usually hear about them. So.
And.
Or a guy doesn't want to work with like a Ciampa because like they know, okay, well that's going to be a very physical match.
I guess I had the same reputation. I don't know. I always got along with everyone in the locker room. The way they told me was, it got back to them that, hey, Cedric a little stiff. I don't know, it's kind of, I don't want to.
But since your meeting that you won't disclose to me who said it, did you have any type of correspondence from your management saying that there was an issue, watch it, any type of follow-up where they were concerned about being too dangerous?
No, just...
There was no correspondence between Ring of Honor management and Cedric since that one occasion that you won't tell me who said it, and this last occasion.
No, it was just that. No, I'll take that back. The match with Ishii, where I caught him with the kick. I got a text saying, "Hey, you hurt Ishii with that kick." I was like, "Okay," but it was put to me that he didn't miss any time off. He just was knocked a little loopy. I was like,
how many concussions do you think you sustained in Ring of Honor?
that I've sustained?
Yeah.
At least 2.
At least 2?
At least 2.
Tell me about those. Like, were they? You finished the match?
It was. I finished the match. It wasn't anything crazy.
Was there any point where a lot of times people have a concussion. They'll finish the match. They'll go to the back and they don't even remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever have any of those instances?
No, never. And to my recollection, I've never given anyone concussion like that in Ring of Honor. It was always, okay, you got caught. Sorry. It was never anything like that. The first one I can remember was I wrestled Adam Cole in West Virginia, and we did the Shelton Benjamin, Shawn Michaels spot, springboard into the super kick, and I springboarded, he caught me, and out. I didn't, watching it back is way different than what I remember. So what I remember was taking the kick, bang, going down, 1, 2, big strong kick out. I'm a big fiery babyface. The way it is on camera, kick, down, 1, 2, ugh.
Barely get up.
Barely getting up. And I was like, fuck, I don't remember any of that. I don't remember being like, but I remember waking up going, okay, another one's coming. Boom, finishing the match out, blah, blah, blah. But that was probably the worst it's ever been. And I think another one, I can't remember when it was. I want to say it was a match I had with Tommaso, but it wasn't even like, it wasn't nearly as bad as that. It was just, I saw bright lights for a second, and that was about it. That's all I can remember at the moment. But there's never been a moment where I forgot an entire match and didn't remember how I got there.
So they told you to focus on this Cruiserweight Classic. Let's go back to February, and how did you get in touch with WWE to even initiate the visit to the Performance Center?
Okay, so my contract was up on New Year's Day. Tooling around for a couple weeks. I got an email, I got Kane and Siemens' email from a guy who used to work, who had the email. I can't remember his name. George was his name. Got the email from him. So I went on my own and said, hey, I don't know where I stand on the WWE radar. I would like to get an opportunity there, tryout camp, anything, whatever you can do. And I immediately got an email back saying, we know exactly who you are. Here's the details for the camp in February. Boom.
So you disclosed that you're not under contract. You'd love to know where.
I told him I'm not under contract. I would love to know where I stand as far as where I can fit in, and I was just looking for an opportunity. And no, we know exactly who you are. We watch your career in depth, and hey, here's the February camp is open. If you'd like to do that, let me know. Yes, I'd love to do it.
You know, you'd expect him to know a little more. Do you ever think of like, I wonder if Vince McMahon's ever heard my name before? Do you ever?
Sometimes I have.
I do. I look at a guy like, I wonder if he even knows who that guy is. You know, usually it's a guy that's already on TV that you just like. You know, I wonder if he's paying attention. So that's got to be flattering, at least to know that somebody that's dealing with what's his role, talent liaison. Talent
he is the head of talent development.
So, I mean, he's a guy who's familiar with you. He says, okay, our next camp is February. You come on down. So you go down to Florida. Describe what, I mean, I'm sure it's not as nice as our place here, but tell us a little more about your first impressions of the performance.
Well, of course, I'm super nervous. Sweating bullets. Oh, man. With the Performance Center, I never thought I would actually be here. And it was oddly very welcoming. Because for that tryout, it was a bunch of athletes from different walks of life. We had sumo wrestlers, basketball players, football players. There were actors from Broadway who tried out. It was weird. But everyone there was very like.
Were there any guys from the independents?
Yes, Tony Nese is the most notable guy I can remember from being there. I think everyone else was. There were some other indie guys, but no one I'd ever known prior to the tryout. Mm-hmm. Tony Nese was the other biggest name that I can remember right now, and everyone was oddly welcoming. Everyone was very supportive of each other, and in my mind, we're all competing to get a spot here. So why are we all being friendly? But I guess everyone else, like these sumos and basketball and football players, not really being involved in wrestling prior to this, just saw it as we're gonna have fun and do whatever. And it was what, a 4-day camp. Day 2, I was like, man, you know what? Let's have a good time with this. Everybody's cheering each other on, and it was not just from the participants in the camp, but actually the coaches. Like, of course, they were hard on us with drills and pushed us and stuff like that, but when someone did good, you knew it. And then they pulled some people aside and said, "It's really good here. This," and I felt more welcomed in those 4 or 5 days I was there than I ever did Ring of Honor.
What do you think got their attention when you were down at the Performance Center?
I would have to say my athleticism. I was told, like, the first day, like, you move really, really smoothly. And I think that's what really stuck out to them. And then as the drills got more intense, they say I didn't get blown up, but I was blown up. I was dying. But they're like, no, you kept pushing. You still moved the same from the start to the finish. It was really, really good. And you're someone to keep an eye on is what they told me.
And I've heard stories of where these really great physical athletes, football players, they go into those drills and they get blown up real quick.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'm wondering sometimes if they do some of these drills to almost get some credibility with these real athletes, so to speak.
I think so. I 100% think so. Like, people were dropping like flies at one point. Excuse me. I remember the first day, someone like blew his knee out. I think it was a football player. So no one I had heard of at the time, but blew his knee out the first day, and was unconscious the rest of the time. And then slowly but surely, one by one, people are just having, go puke here, go puke there. Another guy blew out his shoulder, and then there was a sumo wrestler, one of the sumos. It was 2 of them. One of them just said, "Screw it, I give up." And just quit. Like day 2, day 3.
Didn't want it that bad, huh?
It did not want it that bad. It was the toughest, but probably the most fun I could have had there.
It's something I want to connect to this that was actually happened before this. The way wrestling works is, someone gets an in and you try to use that person to get you in there. So Kevin, good friend of yours, he's now working for WWE. He's made it to NXT. He's made it. Kevin Owens is now on Raw. I'm sure you probably hit him up like, hey, can you put in a word for me somewhere? I know Kevin was a big fan of yours, and then suddenly things changed in terms of Kevin pushing for Cedric. There was a certain incident that happened that we thought at the time might have been a big roadblock.
Oh, Michael, you dig deep. Okay, so
it's a little easier when you know the stories, right?
Well, okay, so Kevin did push hard for me, like when I was still in Ring of Honor, and he was doing developmental stuff and hadn't quite debuted yet. He was asking me like, "Hey, how long is your contract up?" Okay, I'm gonna talk to people for you. So when your contract's up, maybe they look at you, even if it's a year from now, 2 years from now. Just try to stay open if you can. And he was always very supportive of me. And then the incident you're speaking of is I guess you call it the backbreaker heard around the world, the thing that made me Warstar famous. So it was the AIW match with Candice LeRae. I gave her the lumbar check, the double knee backbreaker.
Oh yeah, we've seen it.
Yeah, it went crazy over the internet. It actually popped back up recently, so hopefully it don't get me in trouble. But
I'm pretty sure they know about it.
they haven't said anything to me yet, so hopefully it's okay. So I gave her that, and it got over real well. And a little that was in June, July, and then the following January. No, I was asking Steen before that. Hey, do you think anyone would be interested in me and whatever? And he was like, yeah, I think they'd be very interested, but you're giving girls backbreakers, so I don't know how much I can really do for you. His reason for that was because when he signed, he had a couple instances where he wrestled Candace on some PWG shows, and I think it was a PWX show like a year before he got signed. He gave Rebby Sky the package power driver, and the way he put it to me is they gave him a talking to about that. Said, hey, you can't do that kind of stuff. You know, while you're in the developmental stages of signing, we can't have you do this, that, and the other. And I was like, okay, I understand that. You know, that kind of sucks. And then so I didn't really pay much attention to it. And I wrestled Tessa Blanchard on a PWX show, and that blew up. Oh, not quite as big as Candace, but it blew up a little bit. And I got a text from Steen saying, hey, man, I can't really vouch for you. You're going to keep doing that kind of stuff. And it upset me a little bit, but I was like, man, look, I can't. I'm just trying to make a payday here. If you want to wrestle a girl, I don't want to turn down money. And we had a bit of a falling out about that, and it cooled off. You know, we're cool now. Everything's fine. But for a while there, he found it hard to push for me because me wrestling women.
Sure, I mean, it's
which is totally understandable.
Abuse of a woman is a very sensitive issue within the WWE right now, and you know, in some ways the Candace thing's okay because like Candace is kind of her own, like she wrestles guys and she takes insane bumps, and you know she did the lumbar check and bounced halfway across the zip code, so you know it looked particularly good or bad depending on your situation.
As a matter of fact, that got me in trouble in Ring of Honor too.
Did it really?
I was contracted with them, and then when that blew up, I got a bunch of texts and emails saying you can't do that kind of stuff and whatever.
From the same management we're not allowed to talk about?
Same management we're not going to speak of. But it wasn't well received. And that struck a nerve with me even more than Kevin. Kevin, I understand his position on it. I didn't like it, but I understood it. Ring of Honor, I totally did not understand, because at the same time that happened, ODB is on Ring of Honor shows, and she's getting super kicked by Jay Lethal.
Yep, they're doing six-mans with ODB and the Briscoes. And,
yep. And wrestling guys all the time, and I'm like, wait a minute, hold up, what's that about? And Kevin Kelly put it to me like this. He said, well, it's within the Ring of Honor banner, so it's easier to manage, which in my mind makes no sense, but that would make it worse. So you're against me doing this move to this girl who came out perfectly fine, and it was whatever. But you're champion. You're world champion. Super kicks one in the face, but because you can control how it's laid out, it's okay. It made no sense to me.
Could be perceived as hypocritical.
I think so. And then I kind of feel like it was a race thing involved behind it, because, well, okay, maybe I'm getting a little too out of hand with that, maybe. But I also got death threats from that video.
Okay, so my follow-up question was going to be like, forget about feedback you got from within the wrestling community. Let's talk about the feedback you got from outside of it.
Outside the wrestling community, everyone loved it. It's a weird thing. No one got upset with me about that video who wasn't a wrestling fan. If you weren't a wrestling fan and you saw that, it was always, God, he killed that girl. And yeah, that's awesome. That's all I got. But for fans of wrestling, especially fans of Candice LeRae, yeah, I got death threats.
Like, death threats?
Death threats.
So wrestling fans of Candice gave you death threats?
Gave me death threats.
I'm assuming these were the anonymous Twitter people that, you know.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. One guy on Instagram went on a full-page rant of calling me the N-word and how cocky and arrogant I am. Like, every other word was you, in, you, bubble, you, in. I was, whoa. All right, whatever, dude.
You know, as a middle-aged white guy, I don't see the racism that's in wrestling. But then you tell me stories like this, and maybe it doesn't come from within the ring, but it comes from someone that may be buying a ticket, maybe sitting on the front row, maybe on the other side of that guardrail.
I mean, you see a big 200-pound black man beating up a little white woman, maybe you get a little antsy about it. I don't know. I'm getting so much wrong for this interview.
No. Listen, I'm protecting you. Come on. Listen, you want me to get you in trouble with this interview?
No, please.
We can go there.
I'm trying to get a job.
That one's not written down. Okay.
I'm trying to get a job, Michael. Please, no.
Okay, so we left the Performance Center, and I remember you came back, and you almost had a spot in the cruiserweight in hand after that Performance Center week, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was. I knew it wasn't something you could announce, but it was something you were aware of. But until they announced it, you never really are 100% of it. But did you ever lose confidence that maybe that spot wasn't being held for you as time was going on?
A little bit. I was a little worried, and not because. See, in my mind, WWE gave me their word like, this spot is for you. You just gotta lose that weight. And in my mind, I'd never done business with them before this, so why would they lie to me, kind of thing. Kind of like, just all right, I'm taking your word for it. You gave me an opportunity that doing this tryout that I didn't think I would get. So far you treated me well. You've been honest with me. You told me, hey, lose weight. Cool, I'm losing weight.
You had about 4.5 months to lose the weight, but you actually lost that weight like in half that time. You got it like that.
It took me a little under 3 months.
A little 3 months.
On
What did you do to change your diet that you were able to drop that weight so quickly?
Okay, so no one believes me when I tell them this, but I swear it's the truth. I just cut my portions, did an hour of cardio every single day. Every single day that I was home, I did an hour of cardio. And I would just do my regular weight training. That's literally all I did. As far as portions of the meals go, I just, where I would eat 2 chicken breasts and a big cup of rice or corn, I would, cut that in half and just eat less of it. And just eat more so to energize my body and not to get full. And everyone says, oh, you're on the juice, you're on the steroids, you're taking this, you're taking that. I was like, no, I mean, everyone takes supplements. So I took some CLA pills and stuff that's very natural, by the way. It's not.
Did you have to cut down any of the supplements that you were taking?
I never took a ton of supplements anyway, so no, not really. I just took, natural non-stimulant fat burners, and then I took, caffeinated fat burners. Nothing that was illegal. Stuff all over the counter, from GNC or Vitamin Shop, wherever you have a health nutrition.
I just remember we had a pizza party for a guy that was leaving the office. And we go to the fattening pizza. It's pizzas everywhere, and Cedric wouldn't even touch it. Not even a slice.
I wanted to so bad. Self-control was another one too. By the way, that's a big one. And yeah, it was torture. I had to cut out candy, and you know how much I love candy.
Yeah.
You come in the office.
Wait, you're telling me if I cut out candy, it might? No.
I'm just saying all that sugar.
I don't want to hear that.
No more M&Ms, Michael. No more.
Oh, that'd be rough. So. You went through a couple of months there where you don't have a Ring of Honor job. You're crossing your fingers that that spot for the Cruiserweight Classic is still there. You've done your part. You've lost the weight. What's the next step? Was there any communication that said, "Hey, we're checking in on you"? Was there any?
No, that was really. They never said, "Hey, how's the weight coming?" It was always me giving them updates. So I would, every 3 weeks or so, say, "Hey, I'm here," and then hit 205. I say, "Hey, I am at 205. I am ready to do this thing. Let's go." And they're like, all right, awesome, good to hear. We'll be sending out paperwork for, they sent out a bunch of paperwork for us to release and sign, and to make sure that I own my name, because everyone thinks, oh, Cedric Alexander. That's not your real name.
Well, there is another more famous Cedric Alexander right now.
I get all his heat on Twitter.
Do you really?
I hate that guy. I hate that guy. And not because of his political standings.
No one here knows the other Cedric Alexander, unless I guess you're like watching CNN and...
I get so many tweets from him saying, "Oh, you're a terrible person," or "Yeah, I love what you're saying about cops and shootings," and like, hold on, man.
Yeah, and you know what? I think you're the Cedric Alexander with the blue check. I don't think he has a blue check.
He doesn't. He doesn't even have a Twitter.
Oh, he doesn't.
He doesn't even have a Twitter.
Okay.
So it's like when you're writing this, tell me how much of a terrible person I am. Shouldn't a picture pop up saying, "This is this person"?
Well, you're both black. Come on, man. Right? How are we supposed to know the difference, right?
Well, I'm like 30 years younger, and I'm wearing little Speedos.
That's true. Yeah, he did. You probably are in a little better shape than he is.
And no one seems to understand that. I guess we all look alike when we have this color.
No, and you're probably getting it twice as hard right now because he's, with all the stuff that's happening with the cops and.
God.
He's kind of been in the forefront of the news lately. So.
It's bad.
So, I know you were saying that you thought that spot was solid, but we heard on the outside probably 100 different people that thought they had a spot.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, obviously there was 32 spots. So we held on to one. So talk about going down back to the Performance Center. And, you know, I think your match was on a Thursday. And your round one match, I think, was on Thursday.
Yes.
So, but you actually came in to Florida on Monday. Right?
I think it was Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Tuesday. I want to say it was Tuesday.
I think if you checked, it was Monday. But
Maybe.
either way, you were there for a couple of days before, and they went through a real process. It was like a legit weigh-in, right?
It was a legit weigh-in. And in my mind, I was like, they're not really going to weigh us in. And thank God I made 205 because that was a mandatory, legitimate weight.
Like they had people ready to go if you missed weight, right?
Oh, yeah. They had like 8 extras waiting around like, someone please don't make room. But no, I totally made it. I was 200 pounds. That's the smallest I've ever been in my entire life.
You probably were on the scale every day, though, just making sure, right?
Doing cardio every morning prior to the weigh-in, which they did the weigh-in on Wednesday. So twice a day I was doing cardio just to make sure I'm well under.
So another thing is you did get to work out at the Performance Center that weekend, but it was optional, right?
Yes, they had 2 times for doing a workout with their head trainer, and they were optional workouts.
Which I was just, my mind was blown when you told me that not even everybody decided to participate.
Not everyone.
Seems like these are 32 people, and maybe there's a couple of guys there that are not looking at this as maybe a possible job opportunity, but maybe, and if it is, I mean, obviously you want to do everything, right? You want to be the guy that says, yes.
I'll do all this stuff. Yeah, and a lot of guys did, but there were quite a few guys who just didn't.
Why do you think they wouldn't want to?
Probably because they have their own workout routines. Because LA Fitness was real popular that week, so like almost every guy who was there was in LA Fitness that night, afternoon, whatever, doing workouts. I was one of the guys who, I did a little bit of the working out, but I did a lot of stuff in ring stuff, blow up drills, stuff like that, and then I would go back to LA Fitness and do my own stuff because I was not gonna be able to keep up well with all the stuff he had him doing. Like it was very CrossFit-ish. I am not that great at working out, but I know enough to get by, and I just didn't feel like I would keep up very, very well with all the stuff he was doing. So I did some of the sprint drills he did, and I did some the box jumps, stuff like that. Just stuff that I thought would help me, and the rest of it was in ring stuff.
So there were 32 guys. You're kind of getting to meet each other. You know who they are. When did you know who you were paired with?
They told us the second day we were there who we were going to work out with, and I'm looking around the field of 32, and I'm kind of like, man, I hope I get this guy. I hope I get that guy.
Well, let's talk about this.
Okay.
There's 31 other guys, and first impressions only. We're not talking about, because now things change. Now you've gotten to see these guys work. How many of those guys were you terrified that you'd be paired with, thinking that this might cost you a good opportunity? Because, again, like, that was your first impression. I didn't even know not half those guys, but there were a few guys there I'd never seen or heard of before. I'm sure if I'm in your spot, I'm thinking like, man, I hope I don't get that guy because I don't know what he's capable of doing.
Exactly. For me, it was one of the luchadors. Not because I'm afraid, I'm not going to have a good match, because in my mind, it's like, I don't know if I could do the stuff that they're going to want me to do. Like Grand Metalik, who could do an amazing amount of stuff. I'm worried that I won't be able to post for his head scissors or whatever cool stuff he's gonna be able to do. So in my mind, I was like, if I get someone who is more my speed, I can show myself. And if I happen to get a luchador the next round, cool. Then I'm fine with that. And then there are also some guys I'd never heard of, like Alejandro Saez. And not saying he's a bad wrestler or anything like that, but he's from Chile. In my mind, they have wrestling in Chile?
Right.
Like,
I didn't know that until recently either.
Exactly. I was like, whoa, hold on. This is a little scary. And so he was another guy who was kind of like,
It's crazy with the internet that we wouldn't know about it, right? In China, too. I mean, you don't think about
Ho Lun was another guy. I was kind of like, I don't know. But then after hearing he had done some stuff in Japan and whatever, Philippines and stuff like that, I was like, all right, cool. It might be okay. But I was very, very worried about not necessarily the quality of wrestler, but am I going to be able to work with them because of their background? Can I keep up with luchador? Can I communicate with a Japanese guy and be able to get a great match out of this guy? I was real nervous. And then when they told me I was wrestling Clement Patel.
I'm glad you pronounced it because I couldn't.
I think that's how you say it. I remember him saying it, and it sounded like that. So I'm guessing. They said I was that's with Clement Patel, and I was like, all right, cool, French guy. I have wrestling in France. It should be fine. And I know he wrestled Chris Hero a lot and a bunch of other names in Europe. I was like, this is gonna be great. And me and him worked really well together. And we both came in it with the aspect of, all right, I'm gonna take all your stuff great, and you're gonna take all my stuff great. And he's a great guy. I like him. I like him a lot.
You know, I was in the crowd for the first round, so you know, my criticism of it is as a fan, within a few seconds, usually you can tell like which guy was going to win, which guy was going to lose, and you know, I'd say there's 2 or 3 matches where, you know, maybe during the match it switched, and you're like, uh-oh, maybe not, you know, and yours was one of them, which is a credit to, you know, the match, because, you know, I was like, oh yeah, Cedric's going through, I barely know this guy, you know, of course he's going through, and then halfway through the match, you know, the story that you guys told, you're like, oh man, maybe he's not. This French guy's pretty good, you know, but I guess they told you when you were paired up. How much after that did they tell you who's going through round 1?
Later that day. So if they told us Tuesday, they told us like Tuesday afternoon that, all right, this guy. So get ready.
Could you see a sense of emotions? I mean, like, this is a lot of guys' first chances. You know, maybe going through. Maybe you could look at it as if I'm eliminated round 1. Maybe I'm just kind of here to make the other guy look good, and I'm not really here for an opportunity.
A lot of guys came in with that aspect. I know I was one of the guys who came in with that attitude, but the next day, Triple H came in just to say hello to people and everything like that, and he gave a really good speech, and it's like, just because you're going out.
Wait, when you say next day, you mean the day after the first round?
This is no, sorry, the day before.
Okay,
the first
so
round.
on the Wednesday.
On the Wednesday,
okay.
He came in and gave a really good speech about how much of a big opportunity this is, and this could really change the face and perception of WWE and wrestling as a whole. And you know, we're listening, and then he went into the spiel of, just because you got out in the first round, doesn't mean that we're not going to see you again. Everyone in this room was handpicked for the reason that we see something in you and believe in you, and everyone in this room will be back at one point or another. And I was like, okay, so if this doesn't go well, I got a second chance somewhere down the line. And of course, he could say that and not mean it, but everyone just looked at it differently. Okay, well, I mean, if this doesn't go well, we all got spots. And then we all heard that, you know, this after the first round was over and the first set of taping started airing, which was last week, this thing really had legs, and everyone was really receptive of it, and it was going really well. It was getting a lot of positive feedback, and even after the first round tapings, they had their media guy tell us the numbers for like just people watching the introduction on YouTube. They put it on YouTube and Facebook Live or whatever, and it was astronomical numbers. It was like 100 and some thousand people watched it live, and then that's not counting the people go back and watch it on replays and stuff like that. So it made me feel way better that if I didn't go far in the tournament, or if I just had mediocre showings, that I would at least maybe get another chance somewhere.
How much of the, I guess the match was agented, I guess? Like, how much did you get to come up with versus how much they said, listen, because they want to be protective too. They don't want to. I can see a situation like that is, you know, 2 guys are paired. If you give them too much leeway, maybe one guy just kind of like makes the match go in one direction, and it's not really what they're looking for.
It was protected very well. Well, I don't want to say protected very well. It was, they gave us free reign to do whatever. They said, okay, these are your agents.
So there's 16 matches. How many agents are spread out over 16 matches?
6. I want to say about 6. 6. Sounds about right. And
so then you worked with one specific agent, or did they?
One specific agent.
Okay, so every agent was assigned to a particular match, and you got to work out with. I'm not even going to try to say his name, Clement.
Clement Patel. Yeah.
So you guys had an idea, and then you go and present it to the agent, and he just says, yes, that's good, no, that's bad, or let's make these changes?
Not really. They really let's, hey, we're not here to change anything about you. We're really here to see what you can do. So go and do what you want to do. But if you want feedback from us and have us give our input, of course. And that's essentially what it was. Like me and Clement had an idea for a match, and we put stuff together, and everything was cool. And then Adam Pierce, who was our agent, said, hey, what if we change this a little bit? he didn't necessarily change parts of the match, but help us present it in a way that made more sense and not, hey, you're just a bunch of guys in there doing moves for the sake of doing moves. So he helped a little, but he left a lot of it on us to say, hey, what do you feel comfortable with?
And I won't ask you to name names or matches, but were there any other people that you felt maybe struggled with the pairings? Maybe it's something as simple as language issues or style issues, or
No one that sticks out to my head. I think everyone had really, really good matches.
do you think they put a lot of thought into the pairings, or do you think they were almost random?
I feel like they were almost random. I want to say they had an idea for certain guys saying, oh, we need him here because he's got to go this far, or I think a couple of the matches were like, man, this would be a really good match. Like I think Zack Sabre versus Tyson Dukes was one of those matches they looked at and goes from totally different contrasting styles and let them go in there and make something happen. I think they had a pretty decent match. But at some points they feel really random. Like wasn't it? Just sticks up my head. Tajiri versus Damian Slater was one of the matches I looked at and I was like, that seems a little weird. I felt that they would put Tajiri with someone a little slower, I guess. Someone.
Okay.
But then again, I thought that in my head, and I watched the match. I was like, oh, well, I'll take that back. Tajiri can still go. Tajiri, I thought, did great.
He was a guy I was wondering if he was going to make weight, because last time I'd seen him, he wasn't really anywhere close to where he is now.
Oh,
so.
He was like 11 pounds under or something like that.
Yeah,
he was way under.
I mean, he was carrying a little extra weight for a while there. So.
Didn't realize that. I hadn't seen him since.
You worked him, right?
That tag match, me and Caleb against him and Mikey Whipwreck. That's the last time I actually.
It's one of my shows. You can go back on Highspots Network, and I'm sure it's up there.
I didn't take the mist though. I was a little upset about that.
No.
I want to take the mist.
Yeah. So you let the other guy step in and say, "I'll take the mist," and
I blame
opportunity lost.
It's all Caleb's fault.
Okay, so we go through there. Let's walk through the biggest match of your entire career, your debut for WWE. You're walking through the curtain. What's going through your mind?
Don't mess up. 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 But then honestly, I think that for a lot of matches, before I go out there, whether it's in front of 100 people in Concord or 600 people in New York, I always have it in my mind that no matter how good I think I am, the match could always go sour and I have to be able to adapt and stuff like that. And once I went out there in that crowd and actually got a really good reaction from the Florida crowd, which I never hardly ever go to Florida to wrestle. Mm-hmm. So to realize they knew who I was and were behind me, I was like, wow.
And that's your Ring of Honor time. That a lot of those guys knew you from Ring of Honor.
Yeah, and that's probably a big part of it there. Like they know Ring of Honor and just, oh, this guy's good. It's gonna be a great match. And I went out there and it was.
Just to reveal a little more, so the first round was legit 16 straight matches without an intermission.
16 straight matches.
So now on top of that, they start the taping late.
Yes.
It was about 40 minutes late, if I remember correctly.
I would say, I was 30. I was 40, 30.
30, 40. It was a late arriving crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So, the building that it's in, I guess, for NXT, here's my theory on it, is they sold out of tickets. And I think there were a lot of scalpers that bought these tickets thinking, like, I'm going to make a mint on them. And then it comes and it's not so much. And there were a lot of people who didn't come because they thought it was sold out. Mm-hmm. And yet there's still a few gaps that they were trying to fill, and they had to readjust. So it wasn't even a full crowd compared to NXT standards.
Right.
It seems like they've adapted because they're selling more tickets now for the next 2 rounds.
Oh yeah, and
so
the last set of tapings was amazing.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the second set of tapings here in a second, but I don't want to miss any detail on this first set. I felt like, and I will say as a fan watching, the pacing was exceptional considering there were 16 matches and no intermission. I was really concerned, having gone through BOLA weekends where you just get so drained that you were concerned that...
And those are half the matches, right?
Yeah. You were concerned that maybe the back half, the guys that were on the back half, would not get any type of reaction whatsoever. But I thought, had a great spot, and you were one of the first four, I think, third or fourth match?
Third match, yep.
So the crowd still had energy, still had life. Enough people knew who you were, where, it kind of carried on. So the match, there was a lot of energy that first match.
and I thought it carried out through the rest of the match. I think all the way to the last taping. I don't think the crowd really slowed down any. They were pretty hot the whole time.
I think they were smart in saving the Ciampa Gargano match for the end. The guys that were the most well known to that Florida crowd. To see the guys that had tagged together. Saying, I know you're a little concerned about how much we're going to reveal because right now that match hasn't aired, but by the time all this stuff comes out, people will have seen it. So I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, so they saved Gargano and Ciampa for the very last match of the 16, and if you were tired at that point, that was a reason to get you refocused as a fan. But do they tell you, hey, how important it is not to disclose anything about it, because it's not like Ring of Honor TV does that. You tape and then within 4 weeks it airs, but this is same as 4 weeks, right? 4 weeks in the first taping. So do they kind of stress on you how important it was not to talk about things?
It was there. We had media meetings on how important it is to do not reveal anything that has not aired. I think we've done a pretty good job of that, even though fans would tweet, "Oh, you had a great match with Clements," and I was like, "Oh, that's 2 weeks out, but I will like this."
And it's also hard with the cell phones and people putting up videos and
it's all over the internet, but they stress a lot. Do not let anything leak.
Right, because I wasn't at your second round tapings where you were paired with Ibushi. I wasn't personally in attendance, but I saw enough of the video where I felt like I was almost there.
Yeah.
But before we jump into that, so we leave after the first week. Was there any type of follow-up from WWE in terms of how they felt from your first round match?
Yes. Actually, I was approached by King and Seaman. I was like, we had plans for you even prior to this. You lost all the weight. They were really impressed about the weight I lost and how fast I did it.
And I bet you there was nobody that had to lose as much as you to get to 200.
The guy from Chile, he had to lose 35 pounds.
Oh, I didn't even know who he was before that. So
35 pounds.
Wow. He needed to lose 35.
Yeah.
He was
huge.
Yeah.
But they were very impressed with the weight I lost and how fast I lost it. They saw the before and after pictures, which if you go on my Instagram and Facebook, you see there's a huge difference between a year ago and today. And they're very impressed with that. They really appreciated the work I had to go through just to even qualify. Mm-hmm. And then they were more so impressed by the match, and they were like, hey, we have plans for you. There is a future here for you, whether it's long-term or short-term. The position you have here is far better now than it was a month
ago. I think out of anybody who, I think everyone's a little skeptical when you have these tournaments where there's some guys that are reportedly already signed and some guys that, we've heard now that have gotten signed, that maybe they had this tournament planned for certain guys that were already under their umbrella or were about to be. But it seems like out of all the guys in the first round, you improved your stock the most.
Yeah,
from where you were perceived to be to where you were afterwards.
That's exactly how they put it to me. They said, out of everyone here, your stock rose the highest because we expected stuff out of you, but we didn't expect that. Mm-hmm. And I was, all right, awesome. Let's get the ball moving then.
All right, so now the waiting game. We're waiting for round two. We're waiting to find out who we're gonna wrestle in round two. Mm-hmm. How long was it until you heard who your opponent was?
Actually, there was never a formal announcement saying it, but if you look at the brackets, I was like, okay, well, if I win this one and Ibushi wins his, I'm wrestling Ibushi.
So the first time you learned, you watched the brackets.
I looked at the brackets, and I remember Tommaso saw it first, and then came up to me and was like, you wrestling Ibushi second round? I was like, what? What do you mean? They had it on the big screen. I look up, and I was like, oh crap, I'm wrestling Ibushi, which makes it even more hilarious because we did promos and interviews before that. And they told me, they asked me the question, who would you like to wrestle most at a tournament that you never wrestled before? And without stuttering, Ibushi. I would love to wrestle Ibushi. And it was almost like an answer from God. Well, here you go, son.
Well, maybe, you say that. I don't know if it's a coincidence, and I'm going to tell you a story right now because the time this video gets released, it's probably going to be in our rearview mirror. So you said Ibushi, and they write you up. I'm going to tell you got your spot in Bola because of your answer to how big of a fan you were of Haskins.
Wait, what?
Say what? Your spot in Bola. There were several people that. So you got your spot in Bola from
Right.
Adam Cole pulled himself out,
Mhm.
and so there was an opening, and there were a lot of names being considered, and I think what ultimately happened is when the brackets were laid out, Haskins was left without like a natural opponent, and your statement of saying that you were super excited about wrestling Haskins, I think, is what put you in there versus other people that wanted to be in Bola.
Oh, I thought it was because I was a good wrestler.
Well, but everybody that was in the final contention is a great wrestler. So,
Yeah,
but
wow.
I mean, a lot of it's like who there were with openings, and I think you made the statement that, man, I love Haskins, I love his work, I'm a big fan. I think that put you over the top when it looked like Haskins was the guy after all the brackets were set. Haskins did not have the opponent. So you look at like who's there in my pool of people to fill that last spot, and so I think it might have happened the same way it happened with Ibushi, is you got placed in a match because
Maybe.
that's. I think as a promoter, you want to motivate the wrestlers too. I mean, you want to make sure you have the best match, and if a wrestler, you hate more than anything else as a promoter is like, I don't care who I wrestle.
Just give me someone.
Just somebody. Hey, listen,
Yeah.
whoever you want, man. I'll put over your guy, whatever. And you hate that because like you. And I know as a wrestler, I mean, you probably feel that way 90% of the time. It's like, I don't care. I just want to have a good match and get
Yeah.
paid and go home and be home with my wife and kid and fiance and kid. But
And she's my wife. Just go ahead and say she's
she will be soon. And but when a wrestler speaks up and says, "Hey, man, I'd really like to wrestle him," I mean, it means more to you as a promoter because you think like, "Man, I'm going to get more out of that."
That'd be really cool if they booked it for that reason.
Yeah, I'm not saying solely, but I think it had a lot to do with it, and maybe that's why, you got paired with Ibushi in the big scheme of things, is because they said, man, this guy wants to work. There's a challenge to work with anybody that doesn't speak English as his primary language. I mean, you've had some experience with Ring of Honor working with these Japanese guys, and you've never seemed to have had any language issues. I've talked to so many guys that say it's not a big deal, but I am. Do you find it to be more of a challenge because of the language issues when you work a guy that doesn't speak English as his first language?
Not at all. I went into the match
Well, not even Ibushi particularly. I'm just saying matches in general.
No, not really. There may be some things you have to work out. You may need a translator for, but like everyone knows, tackle, drop down, leapfrog. You know what I mean? But if you have enough time to really get in there and piece something together, very creative with the guy, and you have enough time to get the spacing and positioning right, to me it's easy.
I was just thinking if at some point in the match, and I don't know how much of it actually happens, but maybe some things in one or both guys get lost. Sometimes if you speak the same language, you can get right back to a spot and then refocus. Whereas maybe if you're not speaking the same language, it's a little more difficult to do.
I don't think so. I think it's as long as you stay within the range of where you were. Like when I wrestled Ibushi, not Ibushi, Ishii. Me and Ishii were wrestling, and there was one point where we had so much time left, so we had to fill it with something else. And it was one of those things where, to me, wrestling is all about body language, and he read my body language. All right, I'm gonna have you chill lock, and then I would kind of, give him the little squeeze. All right, come on up. And he came up. All right, put it back down. And it wasn't something we talked about. It was just kind of, oh, you're waiting for me to do something, so now I'm gonna do something, and then I react, and then he does something else, and then I react again. And it's to me, wrestling's always been universal, to where you could just kind of go in there and not really say much and just do stuff.
I guess it goes back to if the guys are talented enough, it really doesn't matter whether you can speak each other's languages. And maybe if you were paired with Graham Metallic or anybody else from Mexico that I could tell you have in your head, maybe that's not my best pairing. Maybe it doesn't make a difference.
Maybe. I don't. Well, I was in a car ride with Graham Metallic, and he doesn't speak very good English either. So.
But he has some great matches in New Japan's
Yes.
with other guys that are probably in your situation.
So, which goes back to wrestling being universal. Everyone knows, man, and this, and arm drag, and whatever. But after my recent match with Ibushi that hasn't aired yet, like, I figured out that we could do whatever, because there were a couple of things in that match where me and him didn't discuss something. It was kind of saying, hey, this, and then we we were both on the same page, just like that. But if me and him should have a conversation in the back, hey, so how old are you? Huh? It's the same thing with Graham and with me and Graham Metalik, where we're like on a long car ride going from the hotel to the venue, and it's like a 30-minute drive because traffic's so bad, it's so clogged up. And he's saying one thing, I'm like, I don't quite understand. And then we pieced it together in broken English what he's trying to say. Oh, now I got you. And then whatever. I don't know. Yeah, it's just one of the things that just wrestling, everyone speaks the same language, I think.
Sure. So, again, by the time this thing airs, we're dating ourselves on camera, but everyone's seen the Ibushi match. You knew you were getting paired with Ibushi. I mean, off the charts. If anyone's talking about anything for that second taping, it's that match. Everyone's talking about how you blew the doors off. So much so, you blew the doors off the curtain, and somebody walks up to greet you. So take us through that and what you're feeling and what happened.
Okay, this is probably the most emotional time of my entire career. So me and Ibushi have our match. Amazing. First time we've ever wrestled, ever. We ever been in the same ring together, same venue, ever. And we blew the doors off. The crowd was so receptive and in love with the match that as the replays were going on and they're holding our hands, your winner is Ibushi, blah blah blah. As that's going on, they're chanting, "Please sign Cedric." It was. I legitimately teared up and cried because I had, to that point, the most emotional time I've ever had in wrestling was my farewell match for Ring of Honor when the New York crowd chanted, "Please don't go, thank you Cedric," throwing streamers, and that to me that was like, man, I didn't realize how much appreciation the fans had for me until that match. That match is over. They're chanting, "Please sign Cedric, sign that guy. Thank you Cedric, we love you Cedric," and I was like, whoa, I lost you. Hey guys, I lost you. Know that, right? So I'm going to the back and I'm holding in tears, but as soon as I cross that curtain and see everyone in backstage, it just poured out of me, and everyone, Tommaso, who I think is a really good friend of mine, came up to me and said, "Oh, that was exactly what you needed. It was a great match." And Tajiri thought it was a great match. Tozawa came up and told me it was a great match. The guys I didn't really talk to a lot were like, that was beautiful. Terry Taylor, who is known for not liking a lot of things and having to analyze a lot, he's like, "It was great. I got nothing. It was a great match. It was amazing." And as I'm sitting there, like, trying not to cry more, Triple H walks up to me, and while he's talking to me, Ibushi comes back, and he said, "That was fantastic. Go out there one more time. Curtain call. Go." I was like, "What?" So I walk out, and I got a bottle of water in my hand. I'm freaking out, like, "Hey, people." And just when I thought they couldn't get louder, everyone gave me a standing ovation, and just got to their feet, and "Thank you, Cedric." And I was like, I just started crying more. I was like, I look so bad, crying like a little girl in front of all these people, and they just kept going. Like, to me, it felt like forever. But when I actually got home that night and read like the reviews, like, it was a solid 2 minutes of them chanting, and they didn't stop. And as I'm trying to leave to go back, the cameraman goes, "No, come back out." I was like, all right, cool. I'm sitting here still crying, and they're still chanting. And I go to leave a second time, and whoa, here's Triple H. And I'm like, oh God, what's happening now? That I messed up something? And they're chanting, "Please sign Cedric." And he's looking around. Okay. Puts his hand out to shake my hand. And me being a nervous wreck, I have like a bottle of water and an empty hand. I almost put the water in his hand. I was like, oh, wait, no. Shake his hand. And it was like, okay, on the back, escorted me backstage. And yeah, it was quite emotional. And when we got back there, he was telling me how great a job that was, and as it was a phenomenal match. And after everything sat in, and I was just like, oh my God, that really just happened. I was talking to some of the guys who've been in NXT longer, and even Tommaso, and it's like, had he ever done that? Has that ever happened before? He goes, no, that's the first time ever. And later on that night, Brian Kendrick, who had just finished his match, came up to me and was like, live this moment. This may never happen again, not only for you, but for anyone else, ever. So make sure you cherish this moment for the rest of your life.
And again, to put this time stamp on it, that's what it is. We're hoping that match, that moment, we're like right on the cusp of it, keeping our fingers crossed that this leads to bigger and better dreams for our boy Cedric here. And the goal has always been to get to WWE. I mean, it's the number one promotion in the world, and I feel like you're right there. We keep hearing things about guys that may or may not be signed. I've heard your name a few times, so I'm hoping the rumors end up being true.
Hope their shoes are actually right for the exchange.
I know you're waiting on that phone call, hoping for some good news too. But worst case scenario, I mean, even you went out in round 2, but there's another round they're bringing you back for at least one more taping, right? That's a couple weeks.
Yeah, they're doing. Well, at this point now, there's only 4 matches left. So now they need. You can't just do a whole taping on 4 matches. So now you have to have fillers. So I know they're bringing me back for the filler matches, and I'm going to be back at some point. So hopefully
and where this. Have they told you what you're doing with the filler yet? Have they?
No.
So
it's probably one of those things where when I get there, then they'll tell me. But
it almost, you got to feel like I want to be back, but at the same point, it's like, man, I know I can't be more emotional or have a more incredible match. You almost feel like if I'm going to get signed, it better be before this next match, right?
Yeah, it's like it's been so high. Like how do I got to top that?
Right.
You can't.
You probably can't top it. But you're like almost like, oh man, the only thing I can do here is to make things worse because I'm right here, right? So there's got to be that kind of pressure. So hopefully there's some time between now and the next taping. Maybe some good things will shake down. But a couple other questions I have. Okay. The music that you use for that, did you have any say so in the music, or was it pretty much here?
A little bit. I got a phone call from William Regal. Which is probably one of the greatest moments of my entire life when we calls you. So he called me and said, hi, this is William Regal. We have a meeting later about you. We want to go over some music and stuff like that. And could you send me ideas for music that you've used before? I was like, of course. So I sent them all music I've liked and used. And they came back with me, the guy who, I can't remember his name.
Jim Johnson?
No, it was someone else. There was another guy who runs the music, and he gave me this track. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not, and I started listening to it, I was like, what is this? And I started getting into it, and it's like, oh, okay, it's rap music. I'm not a huge fan of rap, believe it or not. I'm not a huge fan of it. But it started playing, I listened to the lyrics of it, I was like, yep, this describes me as a human being. I love it. And just went from there, and it was great. And I constantly get tweets and messages saying, what's the name of that theme song? I want to know what it is. And honestly, I don't even know who made it. I just know the name of the song is...
That's good, because music's a really important part of the WWE experience, I think, more so than maybe an indie group. I mean, I was concerned with Rich Swann, because I feel like a lot of the Rich Swann persona was epitomized by, his entrance he used on the indies, and, I heard his repackaged music for WWE.
It's great, right?
It's awesome.
Love
it's
it.
awesome. So I was concerned for him that he wouldn't have a great follow-up, but he does. It's great. It's great. Talk about how, I looked at your posters. I mean, you're pretty busy. Talk about coming off the Cruiserweight, how that's kind of changed your life in terms of your indie bookings. I mean, it seems like you've had a lot more new groups contacting you lately.
Yes. I've had a lot of offers for doing stuff in Tennessee and, Tennessee, and it was overseas that wasn't available to me before, and it's nothing but positive stuff. And the only downside is everything's so far out. It's like there've been very few places that'll say, hey, let's do this month, next month. And in my mind, oh, I was just on the Cruiserweight Classic. My episode just aired. Oh, I want bookings now.
Right.
But and everyone's like, oh, so hey, December, what about this? And September, what about this? Like, that's too far out, man. But sure, whatever.
Yeah, you don't want to tie yourself down because this is the dirty secrets of it is. What's going to happen is if they're truly interested in you, they're going to be like, okay, well, how far out have you booked yourself? And then stop. So, that there's some signings coming on the follow-up to this tournament. You don't want to be that guy that books himself out for 6 months.
I booked all the way to January, and I got to wait to February to actually do anything. So, yeah.
But it's good. It means your stock, your profile's been raised, and that's obviously always the goal. And if anything else from this, if nothing else comes from this tournament, I mean, it was a success in terms of raising your profile.
Yes. So. Yeah. The last 2 months since going back to leaving Ring of Honor, the last 2 months since leaving Ring of Honor and deciding to quote a good friend of mine, bet on myself, has probably been the best 2 months of my entire career.
Speaking of betting on yourself, so one thing I've always been interested in, you're 26.
I'll be 27 when this comes out, probably.
Probably. Do you have a plan B?
Nope. I do not. My plan B was to be an athletic trainer because I went to college for sports medicine. So to me, that was a backup plan. But at some point, I got so invested in wrestling, I just stopped. And I put all my eggs in this basket. And yeah, is it the smartest move? Probably not. But
do you remember a time where maybe you thought in your last 7 years that you were second guessing that you shouldn't have a plan B?
that I shouldn't?
Yeah, that maybe you should be thinking of it. No, that you should have a plan B. That you.
The day I found out I was going to be a father.
Yep.
That was the day I figured out. Okay,
And you're like reading my interview here. I remember when you found out that you man, I'd never seen a guy less prepared to hear the news.
I was, oh man. Actually, okay, so backtrack a little bit. Once I found out, I was a nervous wreck, of course. I was barely skating by with my own apartment and, you know, making car payments and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be so much worse. And I remember the night I found out that Ariel was pregnant, I drank an entire fifth of vodka.
Oh, that seems like a good idea.
I was like, my life is over. Oh my God, I'm so done. And
but you weren't even thinking about your life. You were thinking your wrestling career was over.
I was.
You were thinking, oh man, I gotta go get a 9-to-5 job. I gotta go get.
Of course, that came across my mind, but then also like, my main concern was how am I gonna take care of a baby? I can't take care of myself. I'm screwed.
That's true.
But that was the moment when wrestling became more of just something I really enjoyed and loved to being a passion, to being something that needed to be done. Like, prior to the birth of my daughter, I was skating by, I thought. I didn't work out as hard as I should have. I didn't, probably didn't invest in much wrestling-wise as I should have. I was kind of like just another guy, I thought. And to me, I was doing great. Oh, yeah, I'm working out. I'm going to the gym. I'm getting booked. And, you know, I'm good. But then the moment she was born, I was like, no, I'm not doing enough. So I hustled more to get bookings overseas. I hustled more to get in better shape in the ring and cardiovascular-wise to look better, to promote myself in a way that people would love to have me on a wrestling show, where, as before, I always felt I was like that guy, he's okay. He might be fine. But since having my daughter, I feel like I go into every show, no matter how big the crowd, how big the payday, you can't deny me. I'm the best guy there. And through hella high water, this wrestling was gonna work, and I was gonna make it work. I wasn't gonna let myself settle for mediocrity, and it took a while for that to set in, and then I think that's what helped catapult everything else as far as getting the WWE tryout and losing more weight, and et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, you've seen it being part of this school for the last 7 years. So many guys that come in here and they've got passion and, like, you know, you almost. If I had a nickel for every guy who came here and said all I've ever wanted to do is be a pro wrestler, you know, I mean, it's crazy. Everyone's got the bug when they get here, and then, you know, most of these things get weeded out because something gets in the way.
Right.
You know, a lot of times I got an email this morning of a guy who disappeared a year ago for personal issues, you know, and it's you almost get impervious to it because, like, you hear it all the time, but. Mm-hmm. That could have sidetracked you. That could have been the thing that derailed your wrestling career. I'm sure it's happened to a lot of other guys. Personal stuff gets in the way, and you either learn how to deal with it and refocus, or you let it sidetrack you. So, you know, it's a good lesson for a lot of people watching this interview. I mean, maybe they're not aspiring wrestlers, but anything in life, you could either let something personal like that and devastating like that, not devastating, that's the wrong word,
something
but could be
life-changing.
Could be a life-changing instance that. You know, you could either accept it and improve from it, or you could let it take you down a different path for either short or long term.
Yeah, so. Man, to go on a little bit tangent here, but being a father meant more than just being rededicated to wrestling and stuff like that. Like, I remember being told, okay, I'm pregnant, you know, baby's due December, whatever, and they didn't just help me professionally by hustling more and being a better professional wrestler or whatever. It helped me as a man, like, going way back to when I was a kid. my father was never around, so I always took it as this is my shot to, I guess, not only break stereotypes, but to be a better father than my father was to me, because I remember thinking I'm never gonna be more dedicated to anything else I am to my daughter, and I bring her to train all the time. She participates and does the
she's part of training.
She is training. She's George's right hand woman, and it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me, both professionally and personally. Whereas before I was just a guy. I'm gonna do what I want when I want. You know, life's gonna be there for me. I don't have to set it on. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. And where most people look at this like, oh, it's a life-changing event, and turn my life this way or that way. To like, no, like to me it was right timing. Is maybe in my mind, maybe not when I wanted to be a father, but it's the grand scheme of things, it was the best thing that ever could have happened to me, because it made me a better man, a better wrestler, a better everything. It just improved my life more so than I ever thought it would. All right, that's my emotional part for you.
Well, that's your emotional part. You know, I was thinking about this. I haven't seen how it comes across on TV yet, because it hasn't aired. But I think your biggest problem in wrestling, as you know, is connecting with the crowd, like maybe as a character. In the ring, everything's fine. Mm-hmm. But you're just trying to make that connection to get yourself to the next level. And, you know, I think even something as simple as letting people see you cry at the cruiserweight is going to be something that people say, you know what, like, he's real, this means something. Those types of things, I think, resonate with fans more than you think, you know, because they know it's real.
A lot of guys at the production crew said, I was actually giving the interview with them prior to everything, the round one even happening. They're like, you almost cried on the interview. If you cry, you'll be so much better off. And I tried to fight. I was like, nope, you're not going to make me cry. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to cry. And the Ibushi match, I couldn't help it. Everything just came out. I was like, that's the moment. That's what we wanted. That's what's going to make you money to all these people. And lo and behold, here we are.
It's now the way for you to figure it out is how do you channel that emotion into something other than tears every time you need to get that emotion, right?
Yeah, crying every time on camera's going to get real old.
So just to wrap things up here, the last couple of weekends you've had some incredible matches at Evolve. Mm-hmm. Heard from your old friends there at Ring of Honor lately?
Nope.
No?
Well, I got a couple of texts from guys saying, you deserve it, you're proud of you. Christopher Daniels, who I admire greatly, took time out, texted me and said, man, I'm hearing so much great stuff about your matches at CWC. You're doing great, you deserve it, blah, blah, blah. Moose, well, he's not with ROH anymore, but Moose, ACH, who is a really, really good friend of mine. A couple of people I keep in contact with and are, you know, very supportive of everything I'm doing, and I try to keep up with them too, and yeah, it's here and there.
How has the experience of basically changing locker rooms and working with a different set of guys rejuvenated you as a wrestler? So I'm speaking specifically about an Evolve locker room versus a Ring of Honor locker room and the different guys you're now getting to work with.
I guess I would have to say just environment as a whole is different. Where you have this perception of Ring of Honor of them being strictly a wrestling company, but now they're more of a TV product, and that change of perception may change how you carry a match or how you connect with people and out the crowd. Whereas Evolve, the quality of matches matter. Character, yeah, they have promos to get that stuff over, but they really want everyone to go out there and kill it every single time. Where that's how it used to be at Ring of Honor. Now it's, hey, this is your place on the card. This is your place on the card. They have to kill it. You have to just do this. And where Evolve, everyone wants to grow. Everyone wants to succeed. And I feel that Ring of Honor kind of lost that at some point. It stopped being about the boys and having good matches and make sure people go home happy to just more business than it is having fun.
Damn corporate.
Damn corporate ruin everything. But no, and Evolve, that's how it is. Just hey, let's go ahead and have fun. Let's kill it. Let's make sure people remember this company, our matches, months, decades after this is over. And speaking of corporate, you would think that wouldn't be. It's not fun because everyone has their stories about how they were treated at WWE, and CM Punk always said he hated it there for his last whatever. Everyone has their own experiences. Me, I find it to be very welcoming. The NXT locker room, the CWC locker room, everyone's there with the intent of making something great. And going back to earlier what I said, I feel more comfortable there than I ever have my last couple years at Ring of Honor. Where there, I feel like I'm working on eggshells. At WWE, where you would think it would be more corporate driven and strictly business, blah, 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 I feel way more comfortable there. Way more.
Well, good. So I think a lot of people that watch this interview are going to be a lot of your local fans, the Carolina fans that have seen you for years perform at the highest levels. Just because we've kind of skipped over what you've done here regionally, just maybe sum up your PWX career for me and some of the highlights and some of the things that you're going to take with you wherever you go.
Oh man, PWX was where I first started calling myself the best wrestler in the world. That was rare. I started getting the confidence to say that kind of stuff and believe in it. And matches I've had with Caleb, which are really, really good. The match being 45 minutes was great. Matches I had with Samoa Joe, a dream match for me. AJ Styles, another dream match for me. Tommaso, me and him had a couple matches there, and I thought it was amazing because I love working Tommaso. He's one of the guys. Okay, hit me hard. I'm gonna hit you just as hard, and it's fun in a weird way with him on stuff like that. And to me, PWX will always be the place where you could never deny me. Like, I never felt tied down. I never felt restricted. I never felt like I wasn't worth what I was giving. Of course, me and Katabrowski have had our issues from time to time, and we've had disagreements and arguments, but at the end of the day, I feel like PWX has a really huge part in me being the person and the wrestler that I am today.
Well, Cedric, it's like I've known you for 7 years.
Forever. It seemed like yesterday I was coming in and screaming at the top of my lungs, I want to be a wrestler.
Yep, and out of the thousands of guys that told me that's all they wanted to do, you're still here. We're proud of you. We know you're doing great things, and hopefully the next 7 years are even more successful than the first 7 that I've got an opportunity to watch. And if you do get a job, it'd be great because at least I'll know who to call for tickets in the future, right? So,
I have the WrestleMania seats ready for you.
Yeah, give me that WrestleMania suite, please.
The suite?
Your main event WrestleMania one day?
Hold on, Mike.
All right.
Sweet. I don't know about that now. Front row. We can do front row.
Well, it's certainly been a privilege to kind of watch you grow, and thanks for spending some time with us today.
Thank you for having me on the other side of the camera for a change.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Anytime. Thank you.